Morning. I'd like to call this meeting to order for the Blackhawk County Board of Supervisors regular session for April 7th, 2026. Roll call, please.
Schwartz.
Here.
Hall.
Here.
Grant.
Here.
Kurtenbach.
Here.
Here. Would everyone please join us for the moment of silence to reflect on our actions here today. Thank you. Would you please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1 is the agenda is received and proposed as amended.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The agenda is received. Item 2 is public comments. Is there anyone in the audience today that would like to speak on something that is not on today's agenda? Anyone online? All right, we'll move on to item 3 is a proclamation for National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week, April 12th through the 18th, 2026. Judy was going to speak to that. We have a proclamation. Thank you.
Judy Flores, Director of the 911 Dispatch Center. Every year, there is a week set aside to honor our 911 telecommunicators throughout the country. And so that is next week. So we ask that the board read a proclamation and adopt that for our staff for next week. The dispatchers are in let me just read my notes here, 2020, the governor signed legislation that classified them as first responders. Prior to that, they had been classified as clerical staff. And so in 2020, they became first responders, which was a huge achievement. And just a little bit about Blackhawk County. In 2009, our dispatch center and our operators were the first in the country to take text to 911 calls. It took the country about 8 years to catch up. In 2017, it became the norm where more PSAPs or communication centers were taking text to 911. But we were the first ones to start taking those, and for a period of time, we took all text calls for the state of Iowa until the other PSAPs or communication centers throughout the state could get their technology up to date and so forth. Our dispatchers are certified to give pre-arrival medical instructions so that they can walk someone through CPR. If they've helped deliver babies over the phone at least once or twice a year, that happens. They walk someone through traumatic wounds or bleeding and things of that nature. So there are certain cards that they follow or instructions that they follow, and they give those instructions to reporting parties as they're experiencing a medical need. Just a little bit about our center. On an average day, we are taking about 10,500 radio transmissions, talking to officers or paramedics or firefighters on the radio. And on an average day, we can process or receive upwards of 500 to 600 phone calls a day, and that's a mixture of 911 calls and non-emergency calls. We pride ourselves in our training. It can take 6 to 8 months, sometimes up to a year, to be completely trained. And we take a lot of pride in that. We want our dispatchers ready to help our officers on the streets and our paramedics and take the calls from our citizens and know what they're doing, and the information that they're giving is going to save a life. And so it is a stressful job, but it is a rewarding job. And so we appreciate you doing this proclamation for us and helping us out with our staff next week. So thank you.
You said, Judy, it was 2020?
2020 is when the governor signed it into law.
They changed that. So.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Michelle Walker, if you wouldn't mind.
Whereas emergencies that require police, fire, or emergency medical services can occur at any time. And whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our public officers, firefighters, and paramedics is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who contact the Black Hawk Consolidated Public Safety Communications Center. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the single vital link for our police officers, firefighters, and paramedics by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them with information, and ensuring their safety. And whereas public safety telecommunicators of the Black Hawk Consolidated Public Safety Communications Center have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients. And whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job in the past year. Therefore, be it resolved that the Black Hawk County Board of Supervisors declares the week of April 12th through the 18th, 2026 to be National Public Safety Telecommuters Week in Black Hawk County, Iowa, in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our county and citizens safe.
Thank you very much. This is a resolution. Please answer as your name is called.
Brand,
Yes.
Kurttenbach,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Yes.
Leyland.
Yes. Moving on to item 4.
Can we take a photo for the proclamation? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Judy, yeah. Should be taking it of all of them, than us, but.
Well, with you, like we usually do. Yeah, no, that's okay.
The group of dispatch.
I did bring Allison, who is our supervisor.
That's great,
so
yeah.
Does a lot of our training, is over our training.
Yep,
Well,
right
maybe
in the
it's
center.
because you guys are all about you.
Yeah, that's perfect. 1, 2, 1. Very good, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item number 4 is a presentation by the Black Hawk County Solid Waste Management Commission Operations Project and Program Update for 2026. John Foster, please.
Thank you very much. It's definitely a pleasure to present to you and keep the stakeholders and owners updated on what the commission actually does for the community. This is a little background. The Solid Waste Management Commission is an intergovernmental entity. It is established in 1974 as a partnership between Black Hawk County and all the communities within Black Hawk County to address its solid waste needs. Through that time, we do have a commission we do have a board of commission of 5 individuals. Your guys' representative is, sorry, I forgot, Chris Schwartz, Supervisor Schwartz, sorry. Kind of a temporary mind block. We have 2 individuals from the city of Waterloo, 1 from the city of Cedar Falls, and 1 other individual that represents all the other communities within Black Hawk County. We meet on the 4th Thursday of every month, and that's pretty much when we go through all of our business that's going on. One of the things to highlight is that we're not tax-based. All the revenue that we receive all comes from our tipping fees, so all through the revenue that we generate through the solid waste management programs. First thing I want to kind of talk about is more programmatic. We have our household hazardous waste event coming up here May 2nd. That's an opportunity for residents of Black Hawk County to dispose of their household hazardous waste, which would consist of your paint, or excuse me, of stains, varnishes, paint thinners, pesticides, herbicides, and other household cleaners such as Drano in an environmentally responsible way, so that we're not necessarily throwing those directly in the landfill. We also take electronics during that event as well, which would be pretty much anything with a cord on it. So a lot of laptops, a lot of computers, televisions are probably about the largest ones. We'll see some smaller appliances like the handheld mixers, cordless drills, stuff like that is other items that we'll take. We take that. So that event is twice a year. The next one will be in August 29th, I believe is the second one coming up. So that, again, it's open up for all residents of Black Hawk County, and registration is required. We can visit our website at wastetrack.org. We also need volunteers for that. It is a volunteer effort for staffing that. We look for about 30 volunteers. So if anybody's interested in volunteering for that, please contact us or go to the website. The other one I want to talk about is we are in the process of some construction out at the landfill right now. We're replacing one of the oldest scales out there, so we're down to 2 scales right now, kind of bouncing back and forth. Part of this is we're trying to expand out, add some more space to the scale house as well, and remove the obstacle of people getting in and out of their vehicles. So that way we just kind of do all all the transactions right at the window, which is a little time saver for us as well, in addition to a safety issue that we're coming up. So we're encouraging residents to utilize their own hauling services for when they need to get rid of waste, or if they need to go to the Blackhawk or go to the Cedar Falls transfer station. If they're coming out to the landfill, expect a little bit of a longer line than what you'll normally see when you're out there. Last one that I want to kind of talk about is our operations strategy since the beginning of the commission. Was we've always done, when we initially started the landfill operations, it was a private ownership, private operation of the landfill. In 1985, residents of Blackhawk County basically said that we don't want a hazardous waste landfill in Blackhawk County, and they requested that the commission purchase the landfill. And so at that time, we purchased the landfill in 1985. We took operations of it, or took ownership of it, and then we ended up contracting out the operations to a private contractor since that date. We've had 2 contract operators operate that site since that date. And so it's been a kind of a discussion for the commission for some time. Is that the best operation strategy for the commission to do? Is that best benefiting the communities that we serve? It's been a conversation over that entire period, going back and forth. During the last probably 5 years, it's been more of a concerted effort on really discuss, is that strategy appropriate for where we are today? A lot of that strategy was based, again, where we were at in 1984 versus where waste management practices were completely different. There's a lot of programs. Really, the purpose of the commission is to sit there and really kind of consolidate down and bring economies of scale when we look at solid waste management throughout the community. And we're not just focusing specifically on the diversion services of the landfill. Through a lot of discussions, kind of understanding, well, what's really the role of the commission? How do we really fit in to meet our community's needs? And that's where all the community said we are duplicating a lot of services. These are things that we can do, that we should be doing as a commission, and kind of pushing forward and making it a little bit more efficient, not only for Blackhawk County, but also for the entire planning area. And so those are some of those services are really what we're looking for. Then we went back and reevaluated, does this strategy of outsourcing the operations of the facility still make sense for what we're doing? And again, there's a lot of other factors that kind of get going through this discussion, operational, risk-based. Long story short, we ended up deciding that it was in our best interest to undertake operations on ourselves. So that is a process that we've been going on. We made that decision back in May of 2025. We've been making preparations since then, trying to get everything in line so that we're all set for July 1st. 2026 is when July 1st will be our first day. We're going to have our own operations with our own staff. So it's been kind of a challenge trying to get everything from the ground up. We went through the discussions on continuing having payroll run through the county, or whether we want to establish our own, which is kind of the other side of the topic that I want to bring up. So we do have an agreement in place since 1995, I believe, or 96, to provide payroll services. That came up when I discussed the education position with you, with this board a year and a half ago. And we had some issues with that anyway. There's a lot of terms that were in that contract that were not concurrent to your policies anyway. And so we just kind of went along with it. The board, the commission will actually be reviewing that contract and providing notice of termination of that agreement at the end of the month. I've already provided notification of termination of my employment through Blackhawk County already. That was taken care of at the end of the last month. So that way I'm no longer on as a pass-through through your payroll process. So we're kind of taking the steps so that we're establishing ourselves truly as an independent entity. That was a lot of information in a very short amount of time, and I'd entertain any questions.
So everything's gone as planned, and you said July 1, so you feel real comfortable at hitting that mark? And
I am, yes, I'm very comfortable. Well, it's going to go. I mean, it's going to have to go. It's an essential service. Once trash stops, it causes a lot of public issues. So those that know me, I'm very much a perfectionist, and I like to have kind of everything teed up, ready to go. We've gone through every possible scenario that can happen. There's a few more out there that we're looking at how to mitigate some of those risks. So yes, it'll get going. My goal is just to go on day one, so that way it looks like no different than where we're at right now. Trash is getting buried and we're getting money coming in. As we start going through, we're going to start seeing a lot of these changes are going to be probably 6 months plus, if not a little bit longer than that, to kind of work. The first major thing that I'm working on is communication. There's been a lot of issues between communications, who's really the point, specifically on the landfill side of that, who's really the kind of the point person to talk to, where are people going. Some people go to think that the contractor is the responsible party versus us, and then so it's a lot of back and forth. So we want to definitely clear up how those lines of communication work, who do they need to talk to get specific answers instead of getting bounced around. From there, that's when we're going to start looking at more of the programmatic stuff of establishing some diversion programming out at the landfill. Our biggest strength is all the land that we own. And so how do we utilize this land to be able to benefit the communities that we have?
What kind of staffing, as far as employment, when you're making this change now, what does that mean for you?
So right now, I have a requisition for 5 equipment operators, 5 scale house operators, or 3 scale house operators and 5 equipment or operations and maintenance technicians, which are kind of a crossover between an equipment operator and a laborer. So we're initially starting with that 15, then I have a facility manager, and then we have an office manager. Last week was our first week, so she's definitely getting trial by fire moving forward, and I hate that it's one of those ones we got the plan, but we're still kind of building the ship as we're kind of getting out in the ocean, so. That's the initial plan at least, and then we'll reevaluate where we're at with staff.
John, should people have an expectation that prices are gonna increase quite a bit?
I wouldn't say quite a bit. I know that came up during one of our board meetings, is that we do expect a price increase. How do you not have a price increase when you've held it steady for 6 years? Just looking at the inflation rate right now. So there will be a cost increase. I don't know exactly what that's gonna look like. It shouldn't be significant. The commission does have a pretty good reserve account. And that's been the challenge, is how do the biggest part is just the investment in the equipment. Our initial analysis was about $10 million just to buy all the equipment, upfront costs. But by the time you amortize that out over the life cycle, it was roughly about $1 million per year is where we're looking at. So there's some strategies that we kind of mitigated through there through leases and purchasing. So with that, it allowed us to still remain somewhat of a cash reserve, so that we can kind of shoulder some of those increases if it's a significant one, so that way it's not all coming rolled out at one time.
How many employees was it Waste Tech that they had?
By the contract, they're required to have 15.
Okay.
And I believe they may have had a little bit more out there. Again, it depends on where they're staffing. We weren't getting into means and methods. We just required a minimum staffing level at any time during the operations.
Yeah, I didn't know that the decision was made in May of last year. I was led to believe by somebody that was a different time frame. So.
Correct, and I think a lot of it comes down to some of that confusion. They don't understand, especially a partner who would understand the structure of how everything kind of works through. That's where Supervisor Schwartz is your representative on that board. He provided the feedback during those. I pressed pretty hard to make sure that we were having the open conversations. I was available, so that way he understood kind of where we're at. And again, we went through, we did a couple different studies financially, because the big question was financially, are we really saving money through this process? And that's where we went through and did our own internal study. Besides doing an academic study, talking to other facilities that have gone through this, we conducted our own study, did some benchmarking, and really we found out that between the two, we're really not saving a lot of money, really not spending more money. But again, when we take into the other accounts, the social and the environmental risks that are associated with that and the benefits, we decided that was probably the big driver of why we moved forward with what we were doing.
So then you guys will have how many employees? 15?
15 is what we're shooting for.
Starting?
Yep.
Thank you.
John, how many different areas are we accepting garbage from outside Blackhawk County?
So we accept from 5 different counties. So we have Blackhawk County, Bremer County, Buchanan County, portions of Grundy County. And then for asbestos, we take actually a larger area for that. There's fewer facilities that take asbestos. And so we take a big chunk, probably another 10 or 15. It's not a lot of waste flow that we get from them. I'd say probably 8,000 tons a year, if that.
My concern is we're filling up cells quicker. Is it behoove us to start limiting some of that from outside Blackhawk County in order to save space and what the needs are? I remember being out there when one cell just opened, that thing's full already and capped. So I was like, that wasn't that long ago. So I'm a little concerned. My personal concern is we're gonna run out of space out there.
No, and that's a concern that I have all the time as well. Is, how do we plan out these life cycles so that way we have enough space to at least meet our core needs, and that's where a conversation comes into. Solid waste industry, when you look at it, what you're really seeing is a consolidation of landfill facilities. You can't have a lot of disposal facilities around the regulation. The cost of operating those are skyrocketing. So these little small facilities don't exist. They're not going to exist. So they're really getting regionalization. And that's where we positioned ourselves over time. I'd say my predecessors and the commission has done a really good job at positioning itself. What you see is a very small portion. We own the property. On the parcel that we own right now between Hess Road, Washburn, and Hammond Road, That right there, we have probably about another 40 years of airspace at our current capacity at 215,000 tons per year. And that's conservative. We were using a very very conservative number on water compaction rate, which means how many pounds per cubic yard we put into there. And so we've seen that kind of grow a little bit over time. Like right now, we're looking at the existing constructed airspace we have probably 5 years left in that. If we're starting to hit some of our, that's one of the issues we're running into, is make sure we're hitting some of our compaction goals that we have, so that we can expand that life out so that I get to 8, so that we don't have to borrow so quickly. But those are planned kind of to be 5 to 10-year cells. So right on that postage stamp right there, we have about another 30 years just on that property. Now, we own the next section to the east, and I've already talked to this board about closing down Hess Road and then just leaning up against our landfill and just going to the east. That right there will probably easily give us about another 80 years. So airspace is not really a concern for it. It is, but it's not when you look at the total land airspace the total land that we own. We're always looking for more land. If we can optimize more, purchase more, we will. That's our major strategy, is to secure that airspace. So that way we have airspace and we're positioning ourselves for final disposal for now and into the future, which anticipates where are we at with the regionalization and growth. Because again, once you lose your landfill, you lose a lot of those controlling factors, and it's economic development is what you're looking at, and revenue.
The last question I had is dealing with the methane gas. Are you seeing much as far as numbers yet since it first got started?
We are. So initially when we put that project together, we were shipping to Madison, Wisconsin, because we were running into some issues with Northern Natural Gas to do the interconnect. We were just shipping enough so that we could make our debt service payments. Now that we've connected to the pipeline last month, we should start seeing significantly increase of deliveries. So the system's been performing better than what we had initially thought. Revenue-wise, last year we took in about 50,000, I believe, 45,000 in that ballpark. We're looking at probably doubling that or tripling that here shortly.
I'd like to know more. I don't know if it was.
I can follow up and give a more detailed report. We're
Yeah.
working on our air quality reports right now, so I'll definitely have more air quality stuff. And I can come back and provide just a report on that if you want
I
specific.
think that's always helpful, Jenna. I was
Yeah.
gonna say, just the interaction, I think, or if you do have questions, or if it's just updates, is always helpful, even though we have a liaison, I know our board member.
I can do that.
John, where can people go to get information about this? Because I did a Google search to try to confirm that the Waste Commission took everything in-house, and I couldn't find anything online. And so it was confirmed to me by somebody else, and they're like, is this what's happening? And I said, I have no idea. And so I knew there was grumblings of it last year. And then, so my question is, for people to know what's going on, how can they be directed to find the direct information about the transition? Because it seems like it was done, I don't want to say secretively, but with not much notice to the public.
There was plenty of notice to the public, and that was all through our meeting notices as well as our meeting agenda, or our meeting minutes, which are published in the Courier. That's one of the other issues that I've been working through with the commission, kind of prioritizing is I've alluded to our communication issues, hiring the education and outreach specialist that was supposed to kind of help relieve some of those issues, to be more forward on what we do as a commission. Right now, it's almost an identity crisis that we're kind of going through. I think that's probably the best way to put it, is one, the commission really we were a utility board, but they really wanted to do something more, and they just didn't know what that was or how to better serve the communities. So we kind of worked through that question. A lot of what you see for our outreach is waste track. Waste track is a huge problem that we have right now, is because we did such a good job at promoting that partnership with county conservation and our education outreach, that people get that confused, that that's a standalone organization. It's not really commission, and it's not really what's conservation, not to bring up conservation old stuff, but it was kind of confusing, and then we get even on top of that is you have Waste Tech Incorporated, who's a private contractor that's out there, get that confused with Waste Tech versus the commission. So yes, that's an area of improvement that we need to work on, is how do we continue improving the communication on what is the commission, what does the commission do. Well, we've met all the minimum requirements by law to notify the public that this is what's going on. We're now taking those steps. How do we move forward so that we can provide more information? There's been a few articles in the Courier as well that cover the same discussion. So it is there, but people need to be kind of mindful of being more proactive in what's going on. Even though you're trying to do searches for it, it's difficult at times to find exactly what's going on.
Yeah, All right.
roundabout way to kind of say that it's there, but it's not really easily publicly accessible.
Fair enough, thank you.
Any other questions for John?
Anything else?
Thank you very much, I definitely
Thanks
appreciate your
very
time
much for
today.
coming today.
Thanks, John.
Updating us. Item number 5, claims and payments. This is a resolution that the Board of Supervisors approve expenditures and that the county auditor be authorized and directed to issue payments against the various settlement of such claims as allowed.
So moved. Second.
Ms. Whedon.
Good morning, Board. Our total bill payment today is $243,369.77. Out of that, the 60/40 fund, we're paying $2,870.80. Payroll, wages, $761,629.10. And with taxes and all the other things that go along with that, that total is $1,263,403.14. Only one kind of significant unusual payment, I would say, today. We are able to make the payment on the VA furniture, which we've been using for a while, but we didn't have all the pieces. That payment is $95,110.35. And everything appears to be in order.
Any questions? Ms. Roll call vote, please.
Kurttenbach,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Whalen.
Yes. Item number 6, receive project updates from department heads and elected officials.
Good morning, Board. Kathy Nicholas, engineer. A brief update on the road conditions. The gravel roads, there are some soft spots due to the recent rains. We do have 4 gravel roads that are still closed due to the recent rains. Bennington, Teen, Cunningham, Big Rock, those are out on our notification system. So portions of those roads are still closed due to high water. We don't anticipate any damage, just a little bit of retrieving of the rock in the next few days to get them back in good order when the water goes down. I also wanted to let you know that the DOT, I mentioned this a week or so ago, that the Iowa Department of Transportation is hosting a public informational meeting a week from tomorrow, Wednesday, April 15th, to inform the public about some possible options to improve the intersection safety at Highway 63 and Cedar Wapsie Road. So that will be at the Denver Community Center, and it will be 5 to 6:30 p.m. 5 to 6:30 p.m. at the Denver Community Center. We will post this on our website, our Blackhawk County Engineer website, to further that discussion. Can I answer any questions?
Kathy, I just sent the notice out to the board members. We're gonna ask Gabby to put it on social media as well.
Yes. Great, that's what she's going to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, Board. Being the president, our HR director, just a reminder, we've got department head meeting tomorrow, 10 a.m., policy review meeting as well, after department head meeting, about 10:15. And we'll be talking about the gap in survey results during the department head meeting. I guess if there's anything with policy review, we're going through our travel work policy, that's kind of where we left off last. There was also a lot of discussion on the just left what's the one that you were working on, Rich? The post-bid, thank you, post-bid ordinance. So anyways, but I'll get that agenda posted, and any questions on either of those meetings for tomorrow? All right, thank you.
Good morning. Yolanda Lovelace, Veterans Affairs Office. Glad to be here. It's been a while. Apologize for that. I've been going through some treatments for my heart disease, but I'm doing better today. But I just wanted to go through a couple of slides. I'm gonna actually fast forward a lot of them because you've already been briefed on some of them. I just wanted to highlight a couple things. But I also want to take 2 minutes out to say thank you for how you start the board with keeping us mindful of the things that we need to be prayerful about. And one of them is our nation right now and the service members that are overseas. So thank you for that, and that's one reason why I wear this yellow ribbon. It's also a reminder of when Yolanda first joined the service, and back in '87 during Operation Earnest Wills, where we were escorting tankers through the Gulf. In that, we during that particular time, we had 3 ships get struck with mines. Samuel B. Roberts, which was almost ripped apart, was hit by an Iranian mine. The Tripoli was hit by an Iranian mine, and Princeton. So all this is very near and dear to me, what's going on today. When you look at the 9 deployments that I did, all of them were in the Middle East, all supporting operations in support of our nation. And then celebrating our hidden hero, it's another police officer. In this particular chance, it's Donald Henderson. He served our Waterloo Police Force for 32 years. He also served our nation during Vietnam, right out of Treasure Island. And Don now spends his days in retirement as a carpenter. And we just like to celebrate our first responders. And here's a highlight. The last couple of months we've been highlighting our first responders. Michael Baker was a Marine who also was on the Sheriff Department. Actually, I think he rose to the rank of captain in the Sheriff's Department. And then Larry Kaufman, an Air Force guy who was on the Waterloo PD for over 30 years. So I'd like to continue to uplift our first responders, but every veteran who's out there doing great things for our nation and in our community itself. Just tracking some legislative updates, in particular, that Senate File 2466 is one that we are all actively engaged in to see if it gets approved, but it's one where they're going to look at how do we get Iowa out of the 44th national ranking and move them up when it comes to per capita, what the veterans are receiving per capita from federal funding. And then you can see some of the other ones that we have, and I'll slide through these. One in particular was House File 010, which is Adopt a House, in honoring Sergeant Howard and Sergeant Torres. They were the 2 first casualties out of Syria from our National Guard. We're looking at honoring them and how can you do that. And then some other Senate files that are out there. Just want to push through those. Moving on, the only correction on this slide is that actually should be saying March donations. But $900 in general donations was because of Larry Kaufman. His wife thought it was appropriate that because of the interaction that Larry had with our office for the last 7 years, that they take up a donation for our office. And people that participated in Larry's funeral donated almost $900 to our office out of honor of Larry. And then you can see some of our other expenditures. I will tell our finance director that we have been spending down a lot of that. As you can see, $22K for the first 3 quarters. And then we're looking at purchasing some patio equipment as we look forward to our summer lunches and getting a full year out there at our new facilities that you guys have participated in. And then the great things that our staff has done over the first 3 quarters, so we got 1 more quarter left. But in particular, for the 3rd quarter totals, about $500,000 in retro pay, which is, again, this is a one-time pay that goes out to the veterans. But we're also starting to track how much we're actually increasing each month that the revenue is coming in for the veterans itself. And so on that right-hand side, federal dollars, monthly increases paid to veterans, about $21K. That's where we're going to be able to track to see if we're helping the state of Iowa move out of that 44th ranking to maybe the 43rd. We're not that far off from the 43rd, but Black Hawk County is going to do its best, along with my tremendous staff, to make sure we get there. The month of March was a busy month as we really get led up and start feeding towards America 250 in July. A couple of things we did was we took time out to go visit our veterans that are in the Iowa Veterans Home. In particular, down at the bottom is one person, Cornelius Montgomery. He's a near dear great friend of mine. He's only 2 years older than me, but he's residing at the Iowa Veterans Home. So we had the opportunity to go out and speak with and share gift bags with veterans from Black Hawk County and let them know that they're still are loved and they haven't been forgotten. And we're going to try to make that an annual thing. And while we were there, the Commandant, who actually gave us the tour through the Iowa Veterans Home, we went to go visit one Iowa veteran in particular. And that Iowa veteran is, he's 87 years old and he never been on the honor flight. And so the Commandant asked Stacy if she would take that on, and Stacy went on and contacted Northeastern honor flights, and we actually got that person a seat on the next honor flight. So they were very happy with that, and that's just a brief email that we received from the commandant saying, thank you, Stacy, for taking that action to get that veteran opportunity to go to the honor flight to see Washington, D.C. A couple other things that we participated in March is the Cedar Valley Rotary Appreciation Dinner, and you can see that. And that we also participated in the UNI PTSD conference and the Mercy One Heroes Among Us preface. And there's 2 veterans who were recipients of those awards. Chris Jones and Lynn Swatley are the 2 veterans that received awards there. Then we participated in an American Legion commander visit, where the American Legion recognized the Police Officer of the Year and a few other veterans who got some type of award. And then our year-to-date numbers, when we look at production for the first 3 months, we're at about 1,300 veterans. My goal is 2,000. We probably won't make that goal, but it's always a lofty goal to have that we, so we're probably gonna come up short. I know we are, but we're still, if it's a goal, it's something that we can achieve. We are a little down on our numbers for March, but we're hoping that April, May, June, when the weather breaks and gets a little bit better, we start our lunches, that we get more people walking in the doors. Because that's the only way we're gonna be able to get to move the state of Iowa, 1 county at a time out of the 99, to get us to the 43rd plateau. And then you can see some of our veteran stats, where they're coming from. The Army's still leading the way with 76, the other counties, and then the cities within Black Hawk County. Where we're at, basically with the monthly grand totals, last month it was 4134, this month is 4161. So we're continuing to climb on our monthly totals, and we're also continuing to climb inch by inch with veterans and surviving spouses receiving veteran benefits. And then some of the things that we got from January expenditures, from the management analysis from the IDVA, again, we're tracking that monthly, how we're improving. Then serving veterans, you can see it was the first time in almost 16 months that we did a ramp. But in this standpoint, we didn't use the volunteers to build a ramp, we just purchased a ramp for the veteran. So that you'll see that was $3,000 purchasing an aluminum ramp to help accessibility for the veteran. We did have a veteran who was displaced, so we put him in a hotel for 6 days, and you can see the various other county funds expenditures. In particular, still tracking the funeral assistance, and that's still a growing concern. But just yesterday, I helped a veteran fill out a life insurance policy. Every veteran that's service-connected gets a disability service connection. The VA offers life insurance. And so that's another goal of mine, is to encourage every veteran who has a disability to apply for the VA life insurance, so that we can limit those who need funeral assistance later on after something tragically happens to them. And then you can see our expenditures there. We're way above our goal. We're just coming up to our 4th quarter. We spent $20K last year helping veterans out of county funds. This year we've already spent 23, with 3 more months to go. But we do have a healthy balance to support if something ever happens. And then our monthly participation. One of the things that I wanted to thank Gabby and also our auditor, Karen, because that right there is one of our coasters that we are now distributing out, basically off of Karen's idea. So thank you, Karen, for that. Another way of outreaching, so people are aware that our office is here and that we're there to serve. And we're starting to get those coasters out to various organizations and businesses. And then just some other stuff that's saving the date. I won't go through those, but just stand by to address any questions or concerns, because I know it's time problems. Any questions?
Yolanda, a question just on the ramps. I know you mentioned it had been a while since we've actually done the ramp, and then we did do we still have, I know you had a whole host of volunteers that were helping with that at one time. I didn't know if that had changed at all.
So it has, Supervisor, the problem is our volunteers have aged, and our lead volunteer, the lead contractor, has had medical problems, and so we don't have anyone that has the licensing that he had to support it. And then we did lose 7 out of that. In the last 2 years, we lost 7 of the volunteers due to their injuries that they occurred during Vietnam. Most of them were Vietnam era veterans that were serving. So I think we got 5 left, but it's just reestablishing that those veterans to do that. But we haven't had a big request. But we looked at, here's another way of doing that is to just pay for the ramp and get it built professionally. Until we can occur some other volunteer who can come up with those same kind of skill sets and licensing that our current guy had.
Those people did it for a lot of years, that team did.
Yes, ma'am. They have done some great things for our county.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Anyone else? Anyone online that would like to do an update? Moving on to item 7, minutes approved for March 31st, 2026.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, minutes are approved. Later today, we have a hearing on the general application capital loan notes for essential county purposes. Item number 9, consent agenda. All items are acted upon by a single resolution unless someone wishes to remove them for discussion.
So moved. Second.
No questions? Roll call vote, please.
Grant.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Schwartz.
Yes.
Kurttenbach.
Yes.
Leyland.
Yes. Item 10, contracts and agreements. Resolution of the agreement between Blackhawk County and Iowa Judicial Branch to lease 36 parking stalls in East 6th and Lafayette Street parking lot for juror parking in the amount of $900 a month for a 3-year term. Be approved and direct the chair to sign as recommended by Rory Giving, Facilities Director.
So moved. Second.
Good morning, Board. Rory Giving, Facilities Director. Thank you for allowing me to get this back on the agenda. That gave me some time to, I wanted to compare how our rates looked compared to the other spots that are leased over there from the city. And so what I found out, the city does charge $30 a spot, but there is a percentage reduction once you get over a certain amount of vehicles. So the $25 that we have on this contract really does put us in line with what the city's currently charging. So I just wanted to get that comfort level before I brought this back on.
Appreciate it.
So thank you.
Anyone have any questions?
This is different than what you're dealing with Whitney Middleton.
With
Whitney Middleton, remember that a couple months back, just as far as the public defender's office. This is a different deal.
Yeah, this is just for the jury section of the lot that's adjacent to the sheriff's office. Yep.
These are the blue lined areas?
White line, I
White,
believe.
okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, sir.
There's 36 of them that we have for jurors.
This is a resolution. Please answer your name as called.
Schwartz.
Yes.
Kurttenbach.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Grant.
Yes.
Leyland.
Yes. Item A is motion that the 2025 Blackhawk County wage listing be received and placed on file to direct the auditor to publish in the Library of Cedar Falls Courier.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Item B, motion that the travel request submitted by Rory Giving, Facilities Director, be approved and direct the chair to sign for same, $144.48 Brad Metcalf to attend the IMWCA University offered by Iowa Municipalities Workers' Compensation Association on April 8th and 9th, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item C, motion to authorize and direct the chair to sign the fiscal year 2027 Iowa Department of Transportation secondary road budget and 5-year construction plan as recommended by Catherine Nicholas, County Engineer.
So moved. Second.
Good morning again, Board. Kathy Nicholas, engineer. So as you know, the engineer is required by the Code of Iowa to submit their budget to the Iowa DOT by April 30th, and then their 5-year road plan must be submitted by May 15th. So we actually do this together, or package them together. I know that our budget is included in your budget, has not been approved yet. We will be submitting this per the approvals to date so far. And if any changes are made after the budget process, after this, the budget process is continuing, we will make those changes, make the DOT aware that we have changed the budget etc. So moving on to share with you our 5-year plan and the budget, I wanted to talk about our funding, the way that the roads department receives funds. I know some of this is not new material, I did talk about this in the budget process, but I think it's always a good refresher because the roads department does receive a number of different types of funding sources, so I'll just give you a brief recap of that. So first of all, as you know, we receive farm market funding, and this is established 4 counties in the state of Iowa by the legislature. It's provided from the state road use tax fund. Farm to market funding does not run through the county budget, the roads budget, it's separate. You are approving us spending money from our FM fund when you approve our 5-year plan, and also when you approve different agreements throughout the year as may be necessary to approve project funding. We are estimated to be receiving about $1.6 million in our FM fund for FY27. Our federal bridge funds, that's an annual allocation we do receive from the Iowa Department of Transportation. It is federal funding, so all federal requirements go along with that. That is also not approved through the normal budget process. It's approved per project agreements with the Iowa Department of Transportation and through this 5-year plan process. We receive that bridge funding based on the number of bridges we have and the number of deficient bridges. The deficient deck area of our bridges. That number has been decreasing in the last 10 to 15 years because our bridges are in relatively good condition. I'll show you a slide on that here in a little bit. We are expected to receive about $550,000 in our bridge fund this coming FY27. RTA, MPO money, that's also bridge, also federal funding. It can only be spent on construction, and it does not run through our typical budget process. It gets approved when you authorize project agreements and this 5-year plan. We are expected to receive about $4.1 million in this 5-year cycle that I'm going to be talking about. And then, of course, our secondary road fund. That is our main budget. That is allows us to pay for everything from construction to maintenance to operation, pays our salaries, etc. We receive that money from property taxes and the state road use tax fund. And that is what we are submitting when we talk about a budget. That is primarily what we're talking about is our secondary road fund. And then lastly would be our local option sales tax. And we are estimating that to be $2.165 million for FY27. Here's just a recap of that secondary road fund for this year for FY27 in comparison to FY26. That is our Fund 120, the secondary road fund expenses and revenues. You can see that our revenue is slightly higher in FY27 and our expenses are slightly higher in fiscal year 27 out of our secondary road fund. If you look at the local option sales tax funding, the revenues are also slightly higher than we received in FY26, but our expenses are considerably less than FY26, because in FY27 we were possibly anticipating working on a new shop facility. And this would be one way we would be paying for that shop facility would be with our local option sales tax funds. At this point, we don't believe that will be happening, but this is how we prepare the budget today. I think it's good to also show you how the state of the condition of our roads and our bridges. So this is a graph that shows the condition of our roads here in Blackhawk County. This data is 4 years old. The DOT collects distress data on our roads on a 4-year cycle. We are working on a way to have that updated on a 2-year cycle, but we currently have the majority of our roads are in excellent to good condition. So we're continuing to see our roads be in good condition.
Sorry, Kathy, when you said we are working, is that a association, like state association, or is it?
Good question, Tavis. We are purchasing a software that would be housed here in Blackhawk County. We would have the license for it. We would hire another company to do distress collection. And they would give us updated numbers on a 2-year cycle. And then we can make decisions about roads, resurfacing roads, treatments, what types of roads when to resurface our roads, when to put preventative maintenance treatments on our roads. So I'll be talking a lot more about that in the future, assuming we purchase the software in this fiscal year 26, which is our plan. Looking at our bridge conditions, they are also in good condition. 123 out of our 228 are in good condition. 88 out of the 228 are in fair condition. We only have 17 that are in poor condition, and I've told you in the past that we can't spend, federal requirements say that we can't spend money on a bridge until it reaches poor condition. That doesn't mean it's unsafe or it's failing in any way. It's just declining, and that's when we are allowed to spend money on our bridges. So our bridges overall are in a really good condition, and that's also driving down that amount of money we are receiving from federal funds for our bridges, because it's due to deficient deck area. So when you have a number of good bridges in good condition, we're seeing a slow decline in that federal funding.
Sorry, follow up with that.
Yes.
Is that federal requirement, is it DOT report, or will they go off of this potential?
So there are many federal requirements that go along with receiving federal bridge funding.
Yep.
We inspect our bridges, as I've told you, on a 24-month, most of our bridges on a 24-month cycle. And we report these good, fair, poor numbers every year into a database, SIMS, and the DOT reports all these numbers back to the Federal Highway Administration. And they're the ones who dictate some of the rules about spending bridge replacement money or bridge rehabilitation money, but it must be in poor condition, so that we're not out just replacing bridges that don't really need it. Okay, moving on now to our 5-year plan. And as you know, in any year, we are typically doing treatments, projects on our roads, and replacing bridges. So that's what you're going to typically see every year, bridge projects and road projects. And we also do countywide crack filling that we are placing in our 5-year plan. And we also do acquire right-of-way. So we place that in our 5-year plan as well. We've always done this. The right-of-way locations are usually associated with a bridge project, but not always. So in FY27, probably our big work on our roadway will be on Washburn Road from Highway 218 over to the Gilbertville city limits. We'll be essentially rebuilding that roadway. We can't raise the road because it's in a floodplain, so we're doing any work we do we cannot raise the surface of the roadway due to our permit. So we're finding an innovative way to rebuild that road through a reclamation process. I think it's the first time we've ever tried this process, so that will be next year on Washburn Road. And then we have several bridge projects next year. The one bridge project I've been telling you about is our project on Eagle Road Bridge that we submitted to Federal Highways for our competitive highway bridge grant project. We're still waiting to hear on that. We're hoping that it can still be in FY27. That is a $1.2 million bridge replacement, and the federal government would pay 80% of those costs. So we're still waiting on that, but hoping it can happen in FY27. So we have also 2 small bridge crew projects on Amesboro and Eldora. We'll be replacing 2 small structures. Moving on to FY28, another bridge projects, and then resurfacing project on Wagner Road to resurface from 3.5 miles from the Waterloo city limits up to Cedar Wapsie Road. moving on, and if you have any questions, just stop me. I'm gonna go a little bit quicker now. Our FY '29 projects. An interesting project is out on University Avenue at Ridgeway. We are working with Grundy Road because they own half of that project, I believe. And if you recall, that intersection, was built a number of years ago before Highway 20 was in place. We're actually hiring a consultant in our professional services budget, I believe in FY '27, to do a traffic study of that intersection. The concrete is in need of repair. It's a four-way stop and it has the right turn lanes, so it's a large intersection. And just due to the changing traffic over the years, we would like some professional traffic engineers to take a look at that. At times, that intersection sees a lot of traffic. If there's events at the Unidome, for example, that intersection can see a lot of traffic. And then most of the rest of the time, it sees very little traffic. However, we know that the Cedar Falls industrial area is growing, and that, I'll be speaking about another project here in a minute, we think that intersection may become more important to traffic movement going to and from the Cedar Falls industrial area. So it will be good to have traffic engineers study that intersection. And then in FY '29, we're hoping to actually do some construction to replace, improve, maybe that's a roundabout, we just don't know yet at that intersection. So we are budgeting to do something about it in FY '29. Also in FY '29, we'll be replacing another large culvert on Dubuque Road. It's the sister culvert to the large culvert we replaced this past summer on Dubuque Road. So another very large box culvert that's cast in place. We're estimating that in '29 to cost $1.2 million. And then we have two small bridge crew projects. Moving on to the FY '30 project, and I was just speaking about the Cedar Falls industrial area. We are proposing to improve the county portion of Union Road north of Viking Road up to George University, but it would stop at the Cedar Falls city limits. We're working in conjunction with them. We would grade and pave. It's currently a gravel road. We would grade that gravel road and we would resurface, put asphalt on that roadway. We don't know much about that yet. It's several years away, and we're still working with the city of Cedar Falls on that one. And then more bridge projects. And then moving on, lastly, here in our roads, the one to mention here would be the Donald Street and Elk Run intersection. So coming out of the Northeast Industrial Access bypass study, there was a recommendation to improve that intersection, possibly a roundabout. As I've said, we are not traffic experts on intersections. We will be hiring a consultant working with the city of Waterloo to help us understand what to do at that intersection. I've told you in the past, this is a high accident location for us. It is in our local road safety plan to improve this intersection. So there's a lot of reasons to improve that intersection. We would like to study that with a prior to that professional services to study that. And then, like I said, possibly a roundabout, but we'll know more as we get closer to our 5 years away. And then a few more bridge projects. So that completes the 5-year plan. Can I answer any questions about particular projects? And then this is a summary of all of our funding in the different types of categories. We'll be spending approximately $23 million over the next 5 years on our roads and bridges. And then, as usual, we like to update our 5-year plan. This also is information we provide to the DOT. We will have this posted on our website very shortly once you've approved it. And it's just a color-coded map of what we're doing in the next every year for the next 5 years. So it is accessible on our website to the public. Are there any questions about the map I've given you? provided.
Kathy, I was just gonna ask.
Yeah.
Are any of these bridge replacements decent candidates for considering the rail car option?
So Ryan and I have talked about that recently. We talked to our bridge consultant about rail cars, and we do have some reservations about them, and I would like to, I can share a little bit of that now, or we can have a separate presentation. Our neighbors to the east, Buchanan County, they've historically they have a number of these flat rail car bridges. One of the concerns we have is that the rail car itself is at least 40 years old before it's released from service from the railroad. So we do have some concerns about fatigue over the life of that flat car as it's been used for rail purposes. And there's really no way to gauge that, how much fatigue that steel has experienced over its life before it becomes a bridge. As I've told you, we need to replace 3 to 4 bridges every year just due to the number of bridges we have and the expected service life of 70 years. So there's just a lot of permitting that goes with a structure, a lot of engineering on our end, so we would like to see a structure see 60 to 70 years of life. There haven't been rail car services in place more than 30 years. We don't believe there's been any in Iowa that have been in service for more than 30 years. So we just don't know how long the rail cars are going to last. I don't know if it will be 70 years. But our county crew bridges are very cost effective. It keeps our guys busy in the winter, so we like the county crew bridges that we've come up with. They've been load tested by the Iowa Department of Transportation. There's been a lot of research done on them, so we're very comfortable with them. We know how to inspect them. So those are just some of the reasons that we're not just going to these rail flat car bridges. And I can give you more information about costs, for example. I don't know some of the cost numbers off the top of our head. I don't know how much a new rail flat car costs. But that's a good question.
That was on the future agenda kind of thing.
Yeah, we can talk later about it. I appreciate you guys looking into it so far, so.
Yes, and we have Brian Tyler, who was the previous Buchanan County engineer with a lot of experience. He can come and speak to you as well, if you're interested in that.
And Mike had mentioned last week as well, they were looking into it, from some of the conservation standpoint, so it might be something if we can have a future meeting or something about it.
Yeah, we think they're really great for trail bridges because, they just don't see the loads that
for sure
that they do on the roads. Okay.
The gentleman from Buchanan County is very insightful.
Yes.
And energetic, to say the least, yeah. Passionate.
Yeah.
So if there's no further questions, I'd like to recommend that you approve our 5-year plan and we submit it, and our budget and our 5-year plan, we'd be allowed to submit it to the Iowa Department of Transportation. And if there's any changes in the budget after today, after our submittal, we will make those changes.
Thanks, Scotty.
Good plan. Great, this was a motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Item D, resolution that the change order 006 received from Peters Construction for the Pinecrest renovation project located at 1407 Independence Avenue, Waterloo, Iowa, in the amount of $58,468 be approved, and for the chair to sign for same as recommended by Rory Geving, Facilities Director.
So moved.
Second.
Good morning again, Roy Giving, Facilities Director. This is change order number 6 for the Pinecrest remodel. This change order consists of mainly 3 areas of construction, flooring and concrete. Within the facility, as I had mentioned before, one of the challenges that we ran into is the existing mosaic tile that ran throughout that building. So ultimately, we had to put a pretty substantial amount of floor covering, leveling material on that mosaic tile so it didn't transfer through the vinyl new tiling that we were going to lay. So a good chunk of that is going towards that particular process, and then we also made a few changes to help alleviate some of this problem. So for example, on the north side, it would be underneath the chapel on the first floor, we opted to go with more carpet than vinyl. Carpet was a little more forgiving as far as not transposing through like it would on the vinyl. So in office spaces, hallways, we opted to go with carpet in those areas. We did continue with the hard surface in the clinic for obvious reasons. So there was a little bit more expense to get some of those areas filled in. But ultimately, I think that would be our best decision to go with hard surface for the clinic area. Also includes concrete on the north side of the building. Couple things, we discovered the two entryways, the stoops, had no footings underneath them. So over the years, what happened was that was heaving and would cause pretty significant safety issues. So we corrected both of those entryway doors. We also corrected some of the deteriorated concrete approach up to that north side door, and then also adjacent to our new air handler. So that'll provide a nice new smooth surface for anything that we decide to do back in that area. Could be some additional parking, could be an area that we can park maybe the mobile clinic, which I'll talk further with Caitlin on that. But it sets us up, it eliminates any trips, slips, and falls due to deteriorated concrete. So that's kind of the gist on this particular change order. Financial wise, where that puts us within the project, it leaves us with approximately $120,000 of construction contingency left. With that, we're approximately $500,000 under the original approved budget amount for this project. So when you look at what we've spent so far in allowances and contingencies, roughly $250,000, that puts us at about 3% of the total project cost. So ultimately, we would like to have none, but I think given the scope of this project and the age of this building, I feel pretty proud of that accomplishment. I will say we will be seeing a change order number 7, and that's going to have to do with some additional concrete and entryway doors. Same thing. We found that footings either were compromised or they just weren't there, causing those approaches to the entryways to shift. So we're going to be presenting a proposal to correct that. Any questions on that? All right. Thank you very much.
It's a resolution. Please answer your name as called.
Yes.
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Schwartz?
Yes.
Leyland?
Yes. Item E, resolution that change order 001 received from Peters Construction for the Pinecrest HVAC improvements project located at 1407 Independence Avenue, Waterloo, Iowa, with no net change to the contract amount be approved, and for the chair to sign for same as recommended by Rory Gidding, Facilities Director.
So moved. Second.
Yeah, just to complicate this project a little more, we had 3 different segments, so HVAC is another portion of it. That was a significant portion of this project that equates to about $2.8 million. This is our first change order with the HVAC. Some of the things that we found once we opened up the ceilings and got the plumbing exposed, we found some isolation valves that needed to be replaced. We also found some piping installation that needed to be redone. So We had $75,000 as a contingency in this project, so this cost will be taken out of that contingency.
Rory, those isolation valves, were they inaccessible?
Yeah, the pipe work in this facility is pretty challenging, and these valves, it took quite a bit just to discover where they're at. And we're still running into some issues. We have a ongoing problem where we feel we have a crossover, and so we have a contractor doing some discovery work on a T&M basis. So we will see probably another change order coming for that, but we feel confident once that's complete that we're gonna have a really good handle on the HVAC system for this building. It's gonna be a huge improvement.
And we're making sure we're not covering up these isolation valves again in the future.
No, we've gone through this building with a fine tooth comb, and ultimately that's why we're seeing some of these changes. So feel pretty good about it. Thank you.
Thank you. This resolution, please answer your name as called.
Grant,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Yes.
Kurttenbach,
Yes.
Leyland.
Yes. Item F, motion to schedule the Board of Supervisors meeting for Monday, April 20th, immediately following the hearing at 9 a.m. And I added this item just so we take official action, so we could at least notify the public or at least make sure we were all in agreement on that. You know, next week we have the 13th work session at 4 o'clock at Pinecrest, or at VA, I'm sorry. And then have the next Tuesday meeting as regular session. But then the following week, we have the Monday hearing, and we could either tag it on there or have a separate meeting. Everybody sounded like they wanted to just have a whole meeting, hearing, and another on the 20th. Okay.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Item 12, legislative update. Rich.
All right, this morning, we got an update yesterday afternoon on the proposed property tax legislation. And I sent a copy of that out to the supervisors. And then last Friday, we did not have an update from either UCC or from ISAC, but I did have another call I was on with lobbyists and heard another aspect from folks on what's going on. The information I can share with you is it sounds like the House and the Senate are getting closer, working on a compromise bill. It is, something's happening. They fully expected there would be meetings this week, and we should be hearing more probably tomorrow from those discussions. I haven't heard anything as far as today yet, but they were quite confident that something's gonna happen. They just don't know what and to what degree yet. So, but this latest round it was AI generated, but it gives a scenario of issues on each of the three bills, the governor's bill, the House bill, and the Senate bill. So help educate everybody where they may be talking to any of these issues. That's really about it. Right now, we're still standing by for news.
Knowing everything changes daily, so it's kind of like when the information was there, just an update. See what happens. You also heard or thought something about the sessions that we thought maybe were projected to end on the 20th of April. And
Yeah.
didn't you say some of those after that?
There,
It would be a little later.
there was some thoughts that's gonna be a wishful thinking. They will know more this week to see how some of the bigger issues are coming. There was one other issue. Kathy's still here.
Yeah.
Could you give us an update on that, the SUDIS bill and how that may affect us?
Doesn't much. That was good to know.
Yes, so, cities and counties here in Iowa, I'm trying to think where to start. Cities and counties here in Iowa rely on SUDAS, the statewide urban design standards. And these are known standards published. They're very similar to the Iowa Department of Transportation road and bridge standards, except they address, the SUDAS standards address things that are more common to cities, such as sidewalks, sanitary sewer, storm sewer, things that we don't often deal with in more rural roads. So there are a set of standards developed by SUDAS. There's been a SUDAS committee that meets, I believe, frequently, maybe quarterly, annual at least, to take a look at their standards. And the county engineers, city engineers, they've always been involved in this committee and these standards. Some counties who have a lot of rural development, that they may rely on SUDAS standards. The state legislature proposed that both the House and the Senate proposed versions that would create a new committee, it was called a SUDAS. It's called a SUDAS board that would consist of 15 individuals. 3 or 4 would be developers, 3 or 4 would be contractors. There would be 2 or 3 representatives from the Iowa Department of Transportation, but as I understand it, there wouldn't be any city and county representatives. And this board would set the standards, and it would do away with the committee, the existing committee system. So as I understand it, that was approved by the House and the Senate and possibly signed by the governor. Is that, I'm sure I'm not giving.
They said it went to her desk, so it was great for
As far as it affecting Blackhawk County, it would be very little unless we start to see development out in the county. Since I've been here, in the last 16, 17 years, we've had one new road, Cherry Court, and that was from an existing long-time land that was platted. Stee Construction or Stee Homes decided they wanted to develop that. We did meet with them repeatedly, and they did build it basically according to SUDAS standards, according to our standards. So, because we don't see much rural development here in Blackhawk County, there's very little effect it would have on us unless things change.
Kathy, appreciate your help with trying to communicate with legislators on this too, and
Yes.
the need here for our county. It comes across like it's just watering down standards, construction standards is the biggest concern.
Thank you. All right, item 13 is a hearing, and at 10:17, this was a hearing on the proposed issuance of not to exceed $1 million of general obligation capital loan notes for an essential county purpose, ECP 1, on the matter of the issuance of not to exceed $1 million general obligation capital loan notes to provide funds to pay the costs of an optical scan voting system for essential county purposes. Item 1, motion to receive and place on file the proof of publication and notice of public hearing as provided in Code of Iowa as published in the Waterloo Courier, March 31st, 2026, and in the Hudson Herald, April 2nd, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Item 2, motion to close the hearing after oral and written comments are received.
So moved. Second.
Michelle Walter, are there any written comments?
No.
Anybody want to comment on this? Michelle?
And just tell you, this is kind of routine for
This election
This will-
equipment, anybody?
yeah, it'll allow us to levy the debt service that we've already discussed.
No questions for Karen or Michelle? This is a motion to close. All in favor, say aye.
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 Same sign, motion carries. Item 3, resolution instituting proceedings to take additional action for the issuance of the not to exceed $1 million general obligation capital loan notes.
So moved. Second.
This is a roll call vote, please answer as your name is called.
Hall,
Yes.
Kurttenbach,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Leyland.
Yes. Item 14, work session regarding community of Washburn. We have several speakers here today, and we're going to start item number 1. It's regarding the wastewater system panel project update and potential development. Ben Delgado.
Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Is there a microphone supposed to be here? No.
It's right above you.
No.
Don't get started.
Not
Urban Services, talking about a few topics today. I'll start with the inspection we had last year. We had some requirements and recommendations from the DNR. Those have all been satisfied and addressed. We do have an ongoing agreement with them to address some pump connections and infiltration, which is leaky connections, floor drains, possible other infiltration that can happen, but that is effectively trying to reduce our inflow to the lagoon and make that more efficient, the lagoon system.
Is that very many, Beth? I need to interrupt. I was gonna say, are there very many of that when you say there are?
I don't know of any that I suspect right now. We did have, I mean, this is a 26-year-old system, so we had some concerns back in the 2000s. We had the floods of 2008. A few years after that, we had gone door to door with code enforcement from Waterloo. They had made an agreement with us. So I myself have been in many homes there to check out the systems. That people were notified if they had an illegal connection. There was some follow-up. We don't really know how that got left. I wasn't the owner of Urban Services at that time, so the city was partially involved. Urban Services was partially involved. Obviously, the citizens were involved. We couldn't get into every home. Not everyone agreed to that. And so since they are a rural resident, they don't fall under the city code. I mean, they do technically, but the enforcement was a little bit difficult on that. So I think we resolved most of them. There are some results we'll have from these new panels. I have, the panels have hour meters, cycle counters, a few different ways that we can tell how many cycles are being used on the pumps themselves. So I'll get into that a little bit later, but as far as full inspections, we haven't completed that fully. I mean, it's been years, so somebody could reconnect after we leave as well. So not sure how I recommend at that point. I'd have to think about that a little bit, but I think these panels will allow us to centralize our risk areas. There are multiple homes connected to these pumps, so it's not going to be pointing the finger at one home as easy as we think, but it will narrow us down to 2 to 4 homes if we have an issue on that area. Okay, so yeah, so that the sump pump water and the crack connections can cause higher pump rates, higher failures, more calls for me, more costs for the county or the citizens. The system itself is working normally. The lagoon upgrades have been incredible for me as an operating standpoint. The valves are all working easily now. We had new valves put in. We had the influent manhole replaced. Everything is working properly now, as it hasn't for a few years, but as an operation standpoint, it was a lot easier. It's just a clear improvement to our lagoon operations. Samples will soon be submitted for our spring discharge. I did our influent samples a couple weeks ago, and we have to sample 15 days before we discharge. So in early April, I usually take samples in for that. That will be cell 2 and 3, and we discharge from those cells here later in the month. The panel project was the next thing on the list. I've counted 19 remaining, which puts us at 87% completion. Give me about 4 to 5 more weeks to get those 19 completed. In addition to that, I'm dealing currently with 6 warranty issues. So I've been back to stations to replace the panels. There's something wrong inside the panels. We're doing 147 of them, so I knew somewhere along the lines we'd run into some issues. So suppliers being helpful on replacing those, getting me the support I need for information on what's going on with the panels. So I'll have to go back to those. So we have the 19 remaining plus the 6 more to work on. The new panels have caused a little bit of growing pains with the pumps that are currently in the system. We've ran into a lot of the old panels that weren't alarming that should. So some of the panels have 2 pumps underground. So it's caused me to change a few more pumps than normal on a, we try to stay in that 3 to 5 pump per month range. We've been a little bit higher than that. The parameters of the new panel, it does give us more information, but it also protects the pump from running when it's got a clog or if it doesn't have water in it. So if the sensors were bad in the pump, they could cause the alarm to go off. So we've had an uptick in calls, and I've been over there repeatedly to try to not just throw one solution at these pumps to just replace it, because it is costly to replace pumps. We do rebuild those, but that's also costly. So I'm trying to I wouldn't say babysit, but I'm trying to massage the panels so that we know whether the pump actually needs to be changed. And that has to do with some of the settings that are in it. We have information about the amperage and the wattage. There's, like I said, protections for the pumps so that we don't ruin the pumps by continually running. So it's just me getting used to the controls and the pumps fitting into the parameters that the new panels have. So we do have an uptick. I feel like after we massage this a little bit and I get this thing figured out and we get through the kinks that we have right now, we should level back off to a normal operating level of 3 to 5 calls per month. It's just a little bit of a tough time here for the last, I would say 6, 8, 12 months, something like that. It's kind of changed the game a little bit for me. So the panel project, like I said, give me 4 to 5 weeks to get the following 19 plus any warranty work done. Any questions on that portion?
Yes, Ben, last July, you gave us a report and you thought all the control panels would be changed out by December 31st.
Yeah.
What's the reason for the delay now?
I'm a busy guy. I wouldn't be able to say whether, but just competing priorities. And we did do an extension for my deadline. And so there was some work with, I mean, the 6 panels, we had 4 of them last year, 2 of them just came up. So we had some rework. The guys that I have doing a part of this for me, they're retired guys, so I'm taking off for a couple weeks, I'm taking off for a week. So we just had a little bit of scheduling stuff. I did expect myself to be quicker on this job, but it is a lot bigger project than I had expected. So
Okay.
I appreciate the extension that I got, but we will meet the deadline for what we expect now.
I'm a little confused with your number 19. I was under impression when you're changing out those controllers, the new ones are in the PVC box.
Yeah.
And the metal ones are all being replaced.
No.
Okay.
So the on the post, there's a metal box on the back. That is the continuous power system for the panels.
Correct.
They are continuously under power. They go from post to post, and the wires to the panel come through conduit. It was a nipple before. It is, I'm changing it to a liquid tight connection. So the panel on the front is the one that's being replaced. It was fiberglass. It's now a plastic that doesn't break down in the sun. So the metal box is staying, the post is being removed, and the front panel is being replaced.
Okay. When I went out there last week, I counted 41 metal boxes left, not 19. So
Okay.
I'm being a little confused on.
Well, we did 13 since last week.
Okay.
So it'd be 32. Not sure
Okay.
why there's a discrepancy.
Yeah, this is like last Wednesday, I was out there and I don't know if I've seen them all, but
Okay.
I drove around most of Washburn because I
Okay.
knew this issue was coming up.
Yeah.
I've received some concerns, that's why I took the time to go and check myself.
Okay.
One of the other questions with the controllers, I know on 3rd Street there was some of them that the lettering, the numbering had been replaced on them, but majority of them, the new ones have not.
They haven't. Yep, that's a fairly easy process. I'm getting to that. That's going to be at the end. I've got my own machine to make the lettering. It's going to be a pretty easy couple-day process to get those put on.
Okay. All right, that's questions I have right now.
Okay. Anyone else with questions about the panel project? Okay. I was asked to address a development question via email, and it's on the agenda here. So my answer to the email.
I'm missed you on this, but I appreciate you doing this because I said there have been developers looking at the Washburn area, kind of considering housing development. We've talked about it in the county if we were ever interested in doing other housing development projects. And so I approached the question with Ben, and then I said I'd appreciate him, rather than me relaying the message, if he would share the information. It was a wealth of information I thought you had, so thank you.
Yeah, so my answer was a kind no because of many things working against us in this situation. So I spoke before about our inspection last year. There were at least 2 dings for daily maximum flow. And that flow is an engineered number off of the size of the lagoon, how much capacity the lagoon has in it. So they marked against myself and the county for these two violations. They called them violations. And part of the sump pump reduction reduces that daily flow because all that water then goes into the sewer system, is pumped through our flow meter. So when we're considering adding more homes and connections, that goes against what we're working to do with the collection system. So as much as I want to encourage economic development in the county, this sewer system, it would be very difficult to add connections to. You'd have to go through engineering first to upsize the lagoon, which is already a very large lagoon. If you've been to the lagoon property, it has an embankment off to the south side. It's pretty large. There's a waterway that comes through there. So to increase the size of the lagoon would be very costly. You would have to increase the size of the other two lagoon ponds, not just the first one, and re-engineer and get a new permit. Basically, you'd be rebuilding a lagoon. Or we could increase the amount of discharges we have per year, but that would take aeration. We don't have power there. I'm not an engineer of these things, but the knowledge that I have is that we are already exceeding our daily maximum flow for the Washburn system. So it's going to go through engineering, the state DNR, all those things. I'm also an on-site wastewater installer, so I install septic systems, large and small. There are options for on-site, either each household or a collective system, to treat their water on-site rather than have a collection system. Now, the state DNR would recommend a connection to a local system if possible, but what we have here, I can't recommend it from my standpoint. But I'm just an operator. I just see the things every day, and would like to make a recommendation of no, but anyone's welcome to pursue and push on if they'd like.
No. And I think that's what I said back then. I would assume somebody would say maybe there is a way we could go about doing something like that and would extend the money. But you were talking about millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So it was just trying to understand a little bit more what it would take. And then I think you said too, if we were to do that, we'd have to relocate, or we'd have to be doing something almost like a relocation.
Yeah, so the flow meter is at the edge of town, the west side of Washburn Road. I'm not sure where this development's going to be. If it's to the west at all, we'd have to move that down, which is not an obstacle. I mean, anything can be done.
Sure,
but
sure.
Financial wise, they'd be better off going with a localized on-site system for any homes that are going to get built over there in that area. So, otherwise, there was talk, I think, at the beginning of this entire system was to pump straight to Waterloo. That could be done as well with we have the piping there, so that wouldn't restrict us. It would just be on Waterloo to accept what Washburn has, and you wouldn't have a lagoon anymore. So,
in the meantime, you can mention as far as really just properties coming off and on, we could do that type of thing, but not the.
Yeah, so there's some homes that have been demolished, connections that have been disconnected. There's an old gas station lot there, I think somebody would talk about one time. There's a house on East Washburn Road past the co-op. We are welcome to having those reconnected, but those were engineered in for that usage rather than adding any homes. So overall, I want to support economic development, but this wastewater system is engineered directly for what the connections were at the time.
For future needs.
Thank you, yeah.
Yep. Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Ben, I guess I got a couple more questions
Yes,
here. One of the concerns I received was with an alarm that was going off for 5 hours. What's the normal process if alarm's going off?
Yeah, so once I get a call, generally I try to give 4 hours of response time. I'm not sure of the exact situation you're talking about. Typically, I'm there within an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on where I am, what I'm doing, how emergent the system, the situation might be. I'm not sure the alarm you're talking about, but there have been nuisance alarms lately because I'm trying to massage these situations. And particularly, I remember one on 2nd Street that's been on multiple days for extended periods, possibly overnight. So there's one on 2nd Street. I don't remember the address, but I know that one of the pumps isn't working. So the other pump's doing just fine. What I'll do is I'll manipulate a little bit, try to figure out what the amperages are, I'll reset it. It pumps down itself, actually. I'll get it to do the cycle itself. And my hope is that the pump will continue to take off, and without being babysat, it will continue its service. But it hasn't, so I've been back there multiple times. We did change that pump yesterday, the one that I'm talking about, so we shouldn't have any more continuous issues. And that's not the only example of this. This has happened a few times around town. There's two on Maple, number 2 and number 4, and then I think there was one on LaPorte Road that had been, the efficiency of the pump, it slowed. That's what happens over time. There's a rubber connection with a metal rotor, and the connection becomes less sturdy over time, and so it's pumping less gallons per minute into a system that's pressurized. So somebody does laundry, and the pump is pumping. It's continuing to pump at 5 gallons per minute instead of 10. Well, the water comes in, causes the alarm, and then the pump eventually, since the wash is done, no water's coming in, it'll pump down, light goes off. So we just learned of that one this last week. So we address them when they come, but there are some situations that I know about that may sound like an alarm's been on for an extended period, but if I get a voicemail, a phone call, I'm responding immediately. I may not be able to drop exactly what I'm doing at that moment, but it's in my mind to get people on the way and aware of the situation. So
when an alarm's going off, is it a horn or just a flashing light, or?
it's supposed to have a light and a horn. I did take the light out of the one on 2nd Street so I didn't get false calls, because I knew about it, was returning, but the alarm continued to go back off when it started, so that's when they have the horn. Now, the horns on the new panels are arguably 3 times as loud as the old ones, so we're having more people hear these, which is good, but that means more people are, aware of, an alarm that may be on for a little bit longer, and with the growing pains of this pump panel change, that's just a result of me trying to figure out what's going on, because I don't carry water with me to put into the pump to get it to cycle. I could hook up to somebody's hose, but then I'm getting questions about why is the county guy, contractor hooking up my hose to my house, so just trying to do things as efficiently as possible, really, and not spend money, I guess, unnecessarily. Of course, I'll do anything that needs to be done, but.
Is anyone other than you authorized to be resetting or silencing the alarms?
Officially, I do have a couple employees that can go over there and work on these. I have told some residents that if they call me and leave a voicemail with the address and location and information, that they can silence the alarm. I don't want any nuisances if you're trying to relax in your home, since the alarms are quite a bit louder. I can't deny that, and
That's what I'm
there's really no way to turn them down. And I don't want to disconnect the alarm, because the lights are hard to see. Sometimes the sun's at the wrong angle. So we should have an audible alarm. We just have to make sure I get a phone call if somebody's going to push the silence button. That's my thing, is I don't want any liability of someone touching that, without me knowing. But there are lights, so there's multiple ways of knowing what it is. So I would recommend anyone that was going to push the button to make sure a phone call happens. And then I also don't want children, younger people that don't understand the liability and the seriousness of the situation. Some people don't even know what these panels are. So.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate you coming in person
No
today too.
And I also want to take this opportunity to remind the public that posting on Facebook that an alarm is going off does not do anything. You have to, you need to call the emergency number.
So the importance of the emergency number is that I'm not always in Washburn, Iowa, and I leave the state. Sometimes I'm gone or occupied, so I do have other people on call for me. So the phone number that's available, that's never changed, is forwarded to my personal cell so that I can receive the calls 90% of the time, 99% of the time. The other portion of the time when I'm not available, I'm out of town, it goes to someone else that is certified to respond, and an employee or contractor of mine that goes.
Okay.
So that it's important to call and leave a voicemail, and then since the numbers aren't on there, leave your address, and and we'll find where you are, so.
And can I have you give that number so we'll get?
Yes, 319-240-3967.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I will say, we did have an issue Easter Sunday where a person said they weren't able to leave a voicemail. I immediately corrected that. I do have an app that takes voicemail and transcribes it so I can read what they said. It's a little bit easier for me rather than calling in. So the app had an issue. I reset everything and everything's good to go. So we did have a person say they were unable to make a voicemail.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks very much. All right, item number 2, drainage district. Kathy's whoever wants to go first, okay.
Kathy and I talked, I hope I don't step on her toes too much, but it seemed to make sense for me to go first here.
All right. I just knew you had important things to share as well, so thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna just give you a quick overview of drainage. Tim Jamison, Systems Real Estate Tax Manager in the Auditor's Office. My intention is to give you an overview of the drainage districts in Blackhawk County, a little bit of the history of Washburn, and then I'm gonna turn it over to Kathy to talk more in depth about Washburn. First of all, a drainage district is a method for property owners to figure out a way to get water off of or through their property. It's driven by the property owners, not the county, although ultimately things fall on the county. In order to establish a drainage district, the property owners have to file a formal petition to the Board of Supervisors. They also have to submit a bond that would cover any preliminary costs. If the project moves forward, they get their bond money back. If it's determined the project's not feasible, that money's used to pay the county's cost of that preliminary engineering work. Then a public hearing's held to get comments from the landowners. Ultimately, the Board of Supervisors, if the project's feasible, would vote to approve the district. Then you appoint appraisers that give you damages for the land that has to be acquired to build a ditch or install tile. And then a separate committee is created to determine or classify the land and determine the schedule of benefits. That's what's used to determine how much each property owner would pay for the construction and maintenance of a project. All costs related to the construction and ongoing maintenance of a drainage project are paid by the property owners in the district. I know about 15 years ago, there was some discussion in this room. There were some Washburn residents who thought, well, we paid to build it. Now the county's going to take care of it and pay for everything, which is not what the code says. The code says if there's additional ongoing costs, the property owners in the district should pay for that. And then any additional costs or assessments that are done would be based off that original schedule of benefits that was created. Although you can, if there's major changes in the district, you could ask for a reclassification. The cost of that engineering work would then be paid by the district. Just to make it clear, all those costs come from the district itself. Wanted to say a little bit about the drainage assessments themselves. Unlike property taxes, which are based on the value of your property, a mansion pays more than a shack. Drainage assessments are based on how much benefit you get from the project. So if you're higher elevation, you pay less than somebody at the bottom of the ditch. If you're closer to a tile line, you pay more than somebody who's farther away from a tile line. But the engineers that do the classification study determine all of that. The Board of Supervisors serves as the Board of Trustees for drainage district matters. It is rare, but there is a provision in the code where landowners can elect their own trustees and maintain the district themselves. In that case, the county would just be a method to collect the assessments for that separate Board of Trustees. Drainage districts can be inactive for years, decades even a century, but they remain in effect unless they're formally dissolved, and that requires a petition from the property owners themselves. This board can't just formally dissolve it without a petition. There was a state law adopted in the last session that requires auditors to file with the recorder a record of every parcel that's in a drainage district in our county. This was an eye-opener because I only assumed that we had one drainage district, which was Washburn. But when I looked up the Washburn drainage districts, it was listed as Drainage District 13. It was kind of like, we got at least 12 more to investigate. And in any event, there is a bill that was approved unanimously by both the Senate and the House this year that would extend our deadline to file that with the Recorder's Office for another year. I don't believe it's been signed yet. If it doesn't get signed, I can tell you our office is prepared to meet that code requirement by this June, so it'll be done regardless. Blackhawk County drainage districts. We have 10 established drainage districts in the county. The first one was established in 1906, and 8 of the districts were created more than 100 years ago. The last drainage district established in Blackhawk County was in 1974, and that was Washburn. One of our drainage districts is about half in Buchanan County and half in Blackhawk County. We have another one that's almost entirely inside the Waterloo city limits. It wasn't when it was created, it is now. It still exists, it's still our responsibility. You're still trustees for that, even though it's entirely in the city of Waterloo. Includes the John Deere Tractor Works and Maywood. There were petitions for 4 more drainage districts that were filed, but ultimately rejected, which questions about the numbers that we have, that's why. Blackhawk County has not levied a drainage assessment since 1980, and that was for construction of the Washburn project. Some counties do have more than 200 drainage districts and levy frequent assessments annually. Someone I've reached out to in Cerro Gordo County, they have over 260 that they have to deal with. And so their requirement under that new law to file stuff with the recorder is pretty extensive. They're the ones that helped push for an extra year to get this done. And here's kind of a crude map of the drainage districts that were established in Blackhawk County. The purple dots are the ones that were established. The 7 green dots are the ones that we got petitions for but ultimately didn't move forward. The first one you see up here in Lester Township. Washburn is number 13, but there's another number 13. We have 2 number 13s. I think the problem was when Washburn was established in 1974, I think they assumed the last drainage district created was number 12 over there by Hudson. After they designated Washburn as 13, they found out some property owners reached out and said, hey, what about us? They found out in 1954 that the board had voted to establish Drainage District 13 a little southwest of Washburn. It never got recorded, so when Washburn's project rolled around, they called it 13 too. They're separate districts, but there's 2 13s. I'm not going to go through every drainage district, but just for an example, here's the first drainage district. It's about a mile northeast of Dunkerton, and this map right here is about as good as our records get for some of these old districts. We don't have legal descriptions, they're just kind of hand-drawn. That was a petition filed in 1905 to drain Goose Lake in Lester Township. The board approved the project, and it was built, and the assessments were issued in 1907. Here's kind of an overhead image, hope it's visible, of that area now. You can still see the drainage ditches that were built in 1906, still located there, still look like they're working. To my knowledge, and the best I could find in our records, there's never been another assessment to do any maintenance on these. So I'm going to skip through 2 through 13 and go to Washburn. Article on the left was a 1969 article from the Waterloo Daily Courier about Washburn residents holding a town meeting to start gathering money for a bond and a petition for the district. In 1970, the Board of Supervisors had a hearing scheduled in this room that was later moved to an upstairs courtroom because several hundred people showed up. They had 127 names on a petition of support, 137 names opposed. The record is really scant for the next 3 years of any action being taken here, but then in May of 1973, the board received a new petition from Washburn to establish a drainage district. By February 1974, they voted unanimously to establish a drainage district. They appointed a committee to classify the lands. This is what came back, our paper, and how much each property owner would be responsible for paying. There was a public hearing held in the old Washburn Elementary School in 1977 to talk about these assessments. It was pretty well attended. And then in October 1977, the board approved a plan to levy $184,000 against the property owners and to commence the project immediately. County did get a $50,000 HUD grant, federal HUD grant, to help offset some of the costs of the project in 1977. Acquired the land in 79, and then in April of 1979, approved a $141,000 contract with Async Brothers, maybe pronouncing that wrong, to construct it. They were the lowest of 3 bidders, and then in March of 1980, the assessments were sent to the authorized property owners. Here's a map of the drainage district. The green that covers a section and a half of Cedar Township were the boundaries established for the drainage district by the board. But based on the classification study and the project that was built, only the property owners inside this yellow area were deemed to get any benefit from the improvements, and they were the only ones that received assessments to pay for any work. Again, the benefit schedule, not the property value, determines the amount of the assessment. So a person with a similar home to someone else in Washburn might have a much higher assessment than the other person, but it's because of where they're located, adjacent to the ditch or not, or at the bottom of the drainage way. Also wanted to note that any parcels exempt from property taxes are not exempt from drainage assessments. There's at least 2 churches, the Moose Lodge, and the county roads, all inside that yellow area, would all be subject to drainage assessments if one was ever, if additional assessment was done in the future. After the ditch, Washburn Drainage District was built about 1991, concerns started coming in about silt buildup. At that point, there was still about $32,000 left in the district fund. Sometime in the early 90s, the county used $10,000 of that to pay for a study to determine whether the water system that was ultimately constructed was feasible. After that water system was constructed, they realized it was inappropriate to use drainage funds to pay for a water project that are separate. So that $10,000 was put back in the drainage fund. Conservation Board cleaned it out in 1999 and received some of that funding to cover their costs. The county hired a contractor in 2008 to clean out the ditch, I think rub out some trees. Kathy may know more. And that came out of here. There was a lot of discussion throughout that time about additional improvements that could be made. There was a concrete cunette that was discussed. It would have cost $420,000, and that was 25 years ago. Didn't move forward. And then in 2011, the drainage, most of the balance of the remaining drainage district funds were spent on a study to determine whether a dewatering system was feasible for Washburn. The engineers determined it would cost $1.2 to $1.8 million for that system, which obviously did not move forward. And as of today, there's less than $2,000 remaining in that fund. Just wanted to know real quick too, I'm about done. I think I am done.
Okay.
I did want to point out that because there's talk about potentially doing another assessment in Washburn to pay for a study or to clean up what's there, I did take the original schedule of benefits, which had a completely different parcel numbering system. A lot has changed since this was done in terms of parcels that were combined or split, and so it wasn't apples to apples. Did a lot of work to make an apples to apples comparison. Coral Schneberger in the flat room helped me out quite a bit. But if there is another assessment done in Washburn, I have a tool now. All you would really need to do is type in, you know, if you wanted to assess $100,000, well, that's $1 million, let's say 100,000. It would calculate how much each property owner would pay. So that's available now. It's updated as of 2 months ago. If there's an assessment done, I bring it completely up to date. So I don't know if there's any questions about any of that. Otherwise, I'm going to turn it over to Kathy.
So Tim, in your scenario there, that would be a one-time fee for that 100,000, or?
Well, you know, whatever you guys determine. I wouldn't this is just a recommendation in my opinion. I would not undercut it if you thought it was going to take $20,000 to do a study or something, but you weren't quite sure. You know, maybe levy a little more than that in case that study costs more. The other part is, and maybe this is selfish on my part, because it would be a lot of work to do these assessments, and I wouldn't want you to be doing like $10,000 this year for a study, $100,000 a year after that to do some work, $40,000 the year after that. Any money that is assessed against the property owners of Washburn would stay in this range account to be used for the existing or future maintenance. So I guess my opinion is I wouldn't like try to undercut it. I mean, it'd be better to be a little over than under, so.
The other question I had was, I know that there was some legislation that was introduced this year about making sure that any property that was in a drainage ditch would be listed on their property as well.
Right, so the intent of the legislation from 2005, which was to provide transparency, and I think a lot of folks that have looked at this agree that this is good legislation in terms of its intent. And the idea was that if I'm going to buy a piece of property, my abstract should list that I'm in a drainage district so that I'm not shocked if I get a drainage assessment a couple years down the road. You should know when you buy it that you're in a drainage district. But the legislation itself only required auditors to file a list of properties with the recorder. There was nothing in there that required it to be part of an abstract. The legislation that is proposed gives us another year to do this. It also would say that maybe instead of filing it with the recorder's office, that we could have a different method of notification, like it would indicate on our Beacon website that you're in a drainage district. Just an alternative, maybe more transparent way to put that information out. That legislation also involved talking about whether they could actually require abstractors to include that information. So I'm not going to say I'm an expert in that, but that's what's being looked at. But the intent was to provide that transparency to property purchasers.
Thank you.
So much information today.
But it's
Education.
Tested.
Okay. Okay, good morning again, Kathy Nicholas, engineer. And I know people have been sitting here for close to 2 hours, so I'll try to be.
That's all right, we're
Try to
kind of
proceed
today
here.
to have these special topics done.
A couple of these slides I presented to you at the end of December, so this is just an update, a recap. So what is the Washburn Drainage District? And it's really, for the most part, a 4,000 foot long, linear foot long open channel. And you can see some photos here on the right hand, but it also consists of some concrete pipes that were installed. In this case, they were installed for driveway entrance from this field over to the street. And then there is as has been alluded to, there's a church that's also in the drainage area that was also, the pipes go underneath the church parking lot, so that they are better able to utilize their church parking lot, and perhaps it was deemed to be safer to just put this portion of the drainage ditch underground. So here is an estimate of the actual infrastructure. It includes a number of concrete pipes from various sizes, from 24-inch, 36-inch, 54-inch, but it is primarily that open channel. There also are some aprons. There's a steel flat gate that you can see here at the end of the drainage ditch itself, and there's a control structure here. In June of 2024, we provided an estimate, the engineer provided an estimate to the Board of Supervisors to replace the system, and that cost would be approximately $370,000. Tim already talked about the maintenance. I don't disagree with that. Schmitz & Sons did come in and do some work for the county. In 2009, I believe they got that done. The engineer's office also provided to the Board of Supervisors, when we gave you that cost estimate for replacement of the system, there's a lot of vegetation out there, and historically that's been why I've been involved in the Washburn Drainage District, is the residents call me pretty routinely that the ditch needs to be mowed, or trees are growing right next to the ditch, or trees are growing around the ditch, and can something be done about that? Last year or 2 years ago, the engineer's office provided an estimate to the board of about $35,000. Our roadside biologist has been working on getting an updated estimate, but he told me to just go with $35,000 to $40,000 at this time. And we estimated that once a large number of trees were removed, that an actual maintenance cost on an annual basis would be closer probably to $2,000 to mow the ditch, perhaps a couple of times, primarily to keep the trees down, maybe to spray some herbicides if that's needed. And also in that replacement, we recommended that the board this hasn't been looked at since it was constructed. So in 50 years, no one's really ever set eyes inside those pipes or on the control flap or the control structure at the north end of the drainage district. So we recommended that some type of engineer be brought in and look at this system. So this is what I told you in January. Since that time, you asked me to do a little bit more homework, and the way we see it is it's two types of activities. One would be the vegetation clearing, and again, our roadside biologist thinks that $35,000 to $40,000 is probably pretty accurate. We have not hired we haven't hired a excavator to go out and remove trees or anything, because that decision falls on you. I have also talked with a private drainage consultant as well as some of my peers, because as Tim alluded to, some counties have over 200 drainage districts. And oftentimes the county engineer isn't directly involved in taking care of these drainage districts. In some counties, they have staff that are dedicated to taking care of these drainage districts, if that's the relationship between the Board of Supervisors and the engineer, if that's the way it's been worked out, that in some counties, the engineer has excavators, has equipment that's dedicated solely for working on these drainage districts. So anyway, I've done some research in talking with the consultant. They didn't necessarily feel that an RFP was needed. I suggested that I did write a 10-page RFP. They decided that just seems like you don't need to go that far. You can just come to us with a 2 to 3 page description of the type of what the drainage district is, what type of work you want done, and I said we would like an assessment of the state of the condition of the Washburn Drainage District. So just give some basic information. The one private consultant that I talked to, he suggested that a condition report could be prepared for $10,000 to $15,000, meaning somebody would probably come out on site and do an assessment. They'd also be able to look at a lot of this data online from aerial photos, that type of thing. But he suggested $10,000 to $15,000 for preparing this report. With that information and with hearing some other advice from my counterparts, I looked more into the code, and I know there's a lot of wording on this page. And so there's several ways to go about the repairs. The Board of Supervisors, you as acting as the trustees, you always have the right to go out and fix immediate problems. If the cost is under $50,000, you can have a public hearing. It sounds like we would need to confer with your attorney, Mr. Triner, on this, but if it's under $50,000, you can go do the work. If you'd like to have a public hearing, then there's less stringent requirements for a hearing. The code talks about posting a notice within 20 days of the hearing. Moving on to further sections and more costs, if it's between $50,000 and the bid threshold, which remember the bid threshold allows the county to do work up to the $115,000 is what it is this year. If the work falls into that category of cost, then there's another provision in the code that says you must have a public hearing and you must give 40 days notice, and you must send notices to all the surrounding landowners, just people that are in the drainage district. So depending on the costs, the code kind of has separate provisions for how much notice we have to give the people in the drainage district. The code does allow secondary roads to eradicate or use secondary road fund equipment or weed fund equipment if we stay under the bid threshold. And then, of course, if it is above the $115,000, the bid threshold, then you would have to contract that out and a more formal process notifying those drainage district residents. There would be a public hearing, they would have more of an input. You would take into account their more than the lower costs is what I can discern from the different provisions in the code. And again, we want to confer with Mr. Trinan on that. So these are our possible next steps. According to the code, you could just hire a consultant because it is, we're projecting $10,000 to $15,000 plus maybe $35,000. That is at the 50,000. You may want to have a public hearing before you do anything, or you may want me to solicit bids and then come back to you with those bids and then have a public hearing. The code seems to allow both for both of those. For me gathering estimates, or you could go to the public before you do anything. So I feel like those are the next steps. The board needs to decide if you want to pursue this and how much do you want to pursue at this point with the residents. Can I answer any questions? Is that clear?
No, appreciate the work on it. I was gonna say, just trying to comprehend it all. It's all new since this
Yes.
part.
We got a couple of Washburn residents here. Any comments or
Yeah, I do.
concerns?
Tim Moore, I live at 301 Pine Street. Okay. You guys have been dealing with the ditch for 40 years. Problem with the ditch is it drains. I'm at the back, when we get a lot of flood water, I get 2 foot of water in my backyard. It goes across, I'm on the corner of Pine Street, Maple Street. So back on the back, 303 Pine, 301 Pine, and then what is it? Whatever the corner house is, she owns that empty lot. Drainage ditch comes up, and in front of our house on Pine Street, I had a trailer parked there last year, and I get water up to here standing in there trying to get the trailer out. Okay, so 2 years ago, I went and bought a belly mower for my ATV. Spent $2,500, and I mow the drainage ditch every year. I mowed it the year before 3 or 4 times. Last year I mowed it 6 or 7 times. I mow it from Pine Street, my corner. There's a few people on Maple that do mow. And then you get down about just past 4th Street, nobody mows it. There's trees growing up, so I went through and I've got about a 10 or 12 foot section that I can mow at the bottom because, yeah, the trees are big. I mean, I cut back as much as I can. Last fall, there's a tree now between 1st and 2nd Street that's fallen across, and I can't get across the ATV. I just haven't had time this year to go cut the tree down. It's probably 3 foot around. So the biggest problem with the drainage ditch, it drains. You guys spend money, you study, you dig it out deeper. You got it lower at Pine Street than you do up where it discharges. A few years ago when Leon Mosley was out here, they cleaned the district out there where Falk owns. Helped tremendously. Because we used to get all this water in the back corner and it would just pour back there. Well, they cleaned that Falk property up, so it drains. People keep complaining about this ditch. I've lived out there 40 years. Maybe if you get 6-7 inches of rain, I get flooded. My house don't get flooded. Jackie that lives at the corner, her garage goes underwater. But it's a low spot. her driveway goes down, you'll probably never be able to do nothing with it. If you could get people to mow the ditch once or twice a year, once you got it cleaned out, it would be fine. But you guys go out, you clean it, people throw their garbage back there because the trees start growing. It's a mess. I mean, last year I was cleaning out blocks. I could pull my ATV through there with water. So I keep it mowed as much as I can because it only affects about 6 or 7 people in Washburn. I mean, if you get out there 7, 8 inches of rain, it's gonna be flooded. And you're never gonna stop that. So what you have to do is there's a grill there by the church. We go down there, I make sure there's no branches in there. I pulled out logs, I get them out there. And yeah, it takes a couple hours for it to drain. But when you get that much rain, you're not gonna stop it. So instead of spending $15,000, $20,000 to have people study this ditch, you're just throwing your money away. The ditch works. I've lived there 40 years, so I know it works. If you could just keep it mowed, and like I said, I bought a mower to mow the damn thing so nobody else will do it, because it affects my property. Nobody else cares. You go down Maple Street, very few people really care. They throw their leaves in there, and if you want to burn back there, that's fine. But when you just throw your stuff there and leave it, it's crazy. But again, I'll take care of what I can. But you guys get throwing money at a problem, there's not a problem. The ditch works. If you get a lot of rain, it's going to flood. I've been dealing with it. Yeah, it floods. My house don't get flooded. It gets in the yard. Yeah, it's a nuisance. But after a couple hours, it goes down. So you just got to keep it clean. So like I said, I try to keep the bottom leased so there's no bottleneck from anything going around the corner. But trying to study this is stupid. Don't be spending your money. If you want to spend the 15 grand, go clean it up. I'll keep it mowed until I'm dead. But it's just, quit throwing money at it. You're losing. The ditch works. And who tells you it don't work is lying to you. I've lived there. I know what the ditch does. If you keep it mowed and keep it cleaned out, yeah, it's going to come up if you get 8, 9 inches of rain, but it drains. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the work you're doing out there and to keep it cleaned out.
I got a question. Whose property is it, the ditch? Is it the county's or is it our property? Because I'm one of the ones that mows on Maple Street. I used to mow 4 or 5 people's ditches.
Sir, could you come to the podium and give us your name and address, please?
Have you unrecorded that?
I'm one of the ones that mows out there on Maple Street. My mom lives there. So I go over, I mow her yard because she can't walk anymore.
What's your name and address?
Dennis Rokes.
Okay.
I live in 508 Maple Street. I live just about across from my mom. But I mow her yard, I mow her ditch every year, and I mow the neighbor's ditch. And, like Ron says, he goes from Pine Street down to my house, and then, but, down there, like 3 houses down, then it's all filled with water. But the problem I have too, when my dad was still alive, he went down there, he planted grass seed in the ditch and everything. But ever since the day they built it, after it quits raining, the ditch all drains out for a couple months from, like, my mom's house, a couple houses down, the water sits there for a couple months. So then they're still pumping water. Well, I'm no rocket engineer or anything, but if it's a drainage ditch, there shouldn't be no water sitting there. It should be higher there than it is down where it drains, right? But the water always sits there for a couple months after we get a heavy rain. And it should, you have to wait for it to soak in the ground, which usually take a couple, 3 months. It don't drain. It's been that way ever since day one. And I used to haul concrete for a living. Then I drove truck after that, but when I worked at a concrete plant, we had a transit at work, and I brought the transit home one time, and we checked it, and the drainage didn't go down to where it's supposed to. So we always have 2 foot of water, and it'll be dry down by the church where it goes through that grate that he was talking about. That's the only problem I have. Because then we're still pumping water, and it's dry down where it drains. Plus, if it's our property, that's cool. They should make every homeowner, if they have a ditch by their house, make them mow it. And if they can't mow it, then they should hire somebody to mow it. But it should be, if it's a part of their property, they should have to take care of it. You know, this is city code, right? In Waterloo, if somebody lets grass go 4 foot high or whatever, the city will fine them and make them mow it. You know, I guess that's my own problem.
So people just aren't mowing, or if the people mowed it, and they would address it.
Yeah, but here's the problem, is, on Maple, if you walk down there, some of them ditches are like this, and it goes straight down. So you just can't take a regular riding mower or a push mower to do it. And granted, there is water down there, but Washburn's sitting in a hole. And you're gonna have water back there because all you're doing is recycling the water. Now, when you put the sewer system in, I moved there in 88, we bought that house. My sump pump ran 365 days a year. It didn't matter if it was a drought or not. They put the sewer system in, our sump pump hardly ever runs. So the water table has definitely went down. But when your sump pump's running, you're gonna have water laying there. And granted, you can't mow that, and last year, it will dry up. It's just, yeah, you can't mow with a regular mower. But after, 2-3 months, yeah, the grass is that high, you can take a weed whacker out there and mow it. But again, I bought a belly mower so I can mow it. So it isn't the problem that, yeah, the water's sitting there, but you're not gonna get rid of the water unless you're gonna redesign the whole drainage district. And you're not gonna spend millions of dollars to do that because that ditch only fills up once or twice a year. Unless you have a big rainstorm, I can go back for probably 4 or 5 years and find pictures and video of when it's come up. It comes up one day, and there might be water sitting in the ditch, but it's really not affecting a lot of properties, because once it goes down, yeah, there's water there. The ditch does what it's supposed to do, is keep, back in the 70s, Washburn on Pine Street, if you look back, would be underwater. I think Washburn, I went to Washburn School, and I can remember riding my bikes back there, where the whole town flooded. And that's what that ditch is supposed to do. So the town don't flood. It's a big nuisance and nobody can take care of. Part of the reason is it's hard to take care of it because some of them hills are so steep. Well, now you got trees that's been growing there for 25, 30, 40 years. It's a mess. So if you're gonna spend the money, get somebody out there just to clean some of the brush up and the trees up. And like I said, even if you keep 15, 20 feet on the side, just so you can keep the middle of the ditch free so it flows. Yeah, you got trees on both sides. I seen the farmer out there cleaning up some trees, but it's just that nobody takes care of the bottom of the ditch. So, I mean, that's all I have to say on that, but.
That's all helpful.
I got a picture if you wanna see it.
Yeah, I'll check with you afterwards.
Huh?
I'll check with you, Dennis, afterwards.
Mike Mush, 303 First Street, Washburn. When I moved out there in '82, I was told that we were in a drainage ditch. I found out from a neighbor, I didn't find out from when I bought the property. And I understand the purpose of the ditch, and I understand, how it's supposed to work, and according to Tim, it does its job. But Tim, it shouldn't be up to you to mow the damn ditch. We can assess people, and I'm not probably gonna be assessed as much as you because you live right next to it. But I still think maybe we don't need to do the $15,000, $20,000 survey to see if the ditch is working, because obviously he thinks it is. But if we have to assess somehow to keep it mowed, to keep the trees out of it, we're gonna have to do that. I don't expect him to mow it. It doesn't affect me really all that much since we put the sewer system in. I don't have much water problem at all. But we can't expect 1 or 2 people that live along the ditch to take care of the whole thing. And you can say all you want about telling people to mow their grass. We're not city code. You might as well throw city code out the window. But you can't go to that person and say, you gotta mow that grass because it's yours, and he's gonna say, I don't use that, it's in the ditch, I don't care. You're gonna have to hire people, the county or whoever, pay them a fee, because nobody works for nothing, to keep it mowed, keep the trees from growing in it, keep that grate down by the church, keep that grate cleared off. I don't see any other way to make the system work the way it's supposed to without hiring somebody to keep it clean, and you can't do that unless you assess. Don't get me wrong, nobody wants to pay any more money. I don't want to pay any money to have it done. But I don't think because this has been there this long that we can just let it go now and not do anything to keep it operating the way it's supposed to. So here again, I don't know what it's gonna cost people, and nobody's gonna like spending the money. But you can't expect people that live along the ditch, I don't think, to keep it clean, keep the trees down, because that'll never happen.
It's great that someone does, but yeah, we shouldn't rely on.
It's not a problem on Pine Street. Everybody on Pine Street mows the ditch, because you can mow the ditch. You get around that corner that I mow because it's just a corner, nobody mowed it. And then, like I said, there's about 3 or 4 people on Maple that does mow. Okay, it's the rest of the way down. Well, now, the trees has gotten so out of control that people can't mow. So even if the county got the ditch clean, and then after you cleaned it, you assessed the property owners and had somebody twice a year. All you need is twice a year to have somebody come and mow the ditch, you know, and keep it down. That would definitely help. You know, but yeah, once trees start growing and nobody can mow up on the side of the ditch, yeah, you start getting this, you know, the sapling, next thing you know, an elm tree's huge in a matter of 2 or 3 years with nothing you do with it. So if you just take a big old mower, which they did years ago, and then they just quit and just mow it just to keep the trees down. But like I said, the ditch does work. You are gonna have standing water. But yeah, you need to quit throwing money at something you're not gonna change. It just needs cleaned out and just needs mowed. Even once a year would help, because if you mowed it once a year, you're not gonna get the big trees up on the side like they are now. Because yeah, it's a mess. So.
I appreciate that. Kathy's offered it. There's been other years when you've talked about mowing and keep cleaning out those ditches, but there wasn't funding there to pay them to do it. So that is kind of a concern, but with a solution, a possible solution. If the board would agree to something like that, that how we'd have to go about it from an assessment standpoint, and I guess that's where we get into discussion, I guess, with our legal counsel as well as to how we go about it with the city of Washburn, I guess, or how we do that. So that would be an issue we'd work with Mike on, that it could be done.
Mark Golden, 217 3rd Street, Washburn. Like Dennis asked, who owns the ditch, or how much of the property is owned by the county?
Kathy, do you have an answer for that, or no, or is that something we just have to check for Tim?
It's owned by the drainage district.
It's just owned by them, right? Yeah, not the county.
Yeah.
So the county owns the drainage.
No,
not
the drainage
no.
district.
Who owns the drainage district?
I would have to research this further, but I believe it's owned by the residents of the drainage district.
Within the district.
Those people that are included specifically within the district. Those
That's what I
properties.
think too, but I.
So what you're saying then is whosever property is next to the drainage ditch, they own all of the drainage ditch up to like the farmer's fields?
Well, as I understand, Mark, it's
It
not
belongs to
just.
everybody in the drainage ditch.
This-
I own 15 feet of it somewhere.
Oh,
I live up
Yeah.
on First Street, so somewhere there's 15, 20 feet that I own.
I see.
Point it out, I'll come mow it. But you can't,
Yeah.
we've come to the problem now that something was established 50 years ago. Nothing's been done, well, there have been some things done, but for the majority, most of it, nothing's been done to maintain it. So now we're to the point where we don't have any money left out of that initial fund that was assessed. Okay, do we just let it go? I'm not gonna worry about it anymore. D, whatever you do, the drainage district, get rid of it and let everybody worry about what they wanna do, or you assess people enough to keep the thing working like it's working, if it's clean, and go from there. But I don't see any other choice. I'm like Tim, I don't think we need to spend $20,000 to see if it's working. I just think we need to start out now with just mowing it, getting the trees out of it, and paying somebody once or twice a year, county, whoever, you know, because like you said, you can do it, we just reimburse you out of the district. And then just have it taken care of and see what happens.
Mike, one of my concerns is I keep hearing the Amoco transmission commercial going on, either pay me now or pay me later. This has been going on since this thing has been done. We have no clue what's in the tubes for the drainage. So you're talking, Tim, about how long it takes to drain. We don't know what's inside those tubes or how much the sediments in there, or how much restriction there is for flow.
Well, I don't
That may
think
be
there's
part of the
any
problem
restriction.
too.
Have you ever been down there? I mean, that pipe is like 6 or 7 feet. There's a grate so kids can't go through there.
Yeah.
And if you go on the other side of the church, when that big old flap opens, there's water. But I mean, the amount of water that's in that drainage ditch, when we get that much rain, is unbelievable. I mean, it's draining. I mean, you can't
But
live with water.
nobody's checked those drainage
You can
tiles.
see through there.
Can you run a camera down just through there?
That's where my concern is there more restriction in there that we do not know it today? And nobody's looked. I mean, Kathy asked us, or we asked Kathy for information. So that's part of where the concern is, it's
If you do
just the
study,
process.
If for some reason the study decides it needs to be done, they'll check that pipe, right? Okay, what about that valve at the other end? What's the purpose of that valve? What's that supposed to do or not do? Boston Engineering doesn't know anything from
What valve?
it. North end.
Yeah, the one, what about the one down by you?
Yeah.
What is that?
When it was put in, they put in a couple valves, and I don't understand all of it, because I wasn't there when I
The
did.
valve on Pine Street is, you get people out there that don't know what's going on and they just start spending money. I come home one day and there was a ditch between my property and another property. And we had gates, we were like, what are you guys doing? Well, it's draining, well, the water don't even come through here. So what they did was, they come out and they put a pipe there. And that pipe goes from Tyler's yard underneath the road and it goes down into Pines, down back in the ditch. Okay, so unless you get a lot of water in Tyler's yard, well, if that ditch fills up, the last time they mowed that, they knocked that big thing off.
Yeah.
So it's just laying there. Well, that pipe's open.
Okay.
So then there's that valve you have to shut. Well, if the water starts coming up, I shut that valve, or Tyler and all of everybody else is gonna get flooded out. You know, that's what that flap is for.
When that valve still does operate?
That valve operates, because you can open and shut.
Beginning of, right?
There's a valve on 218 on the north end.
On the north end up there, we don't know what that,
We really don't know much about it.
okay, so what you're saying is, no matter what we do, we still have to do some kind of studies to find out, number one, about that valve. Well, no, I'm not putting you on the spot.
Right.
But if you're gonna spend $35,000 to initially go in there, clean it all up and all that, okay. We do all that and somebody says, well, that valve up there by 218, or up there, isn't working the way it's supposed to. Well, now should we have spent the money to make sure that's working the way it's supposed to? Because initially that was part of the ditch construction, and you wanna make sure that's working right if you expect the rest of it to work right. So no matter what you do, you're gonna have to spend a little bit of money, I guess, to do some kind of inspection to make sure what we are fixing is getting fixed right. But to do that, I don't see any other way but to assess people and thing, because
I think once you get the first initial problem fixed, get the trees out, and then if it costs a couple $1,000s a year to have it mowed once or twice a year, then you can assess that. Yeah, it might be initially a cost up front, but if you're saying the district owns it and there's 800 residents in the district.
well, according to that map, though, it's only gonna be from, on this side of 218, from the church up to Washburn Road. It's there, it's nobody on the other side of 218, it's nobody up on the other side of Washburn Road, along the Port Road. According to your map, they're not in the actual yellow line of the district. So you're only gonna have, what, 300 houses? 300 houses.
But even if it would cost you a couple thousand, you assess, 500 people.
Well, here again, depends on what the initial cost is gonna be.
Well, yeah, you're gonna have the initial cost of cleaning it up.
Well, Tim has made that possible, that we can look at cost figures in there and see what those assessments would be, because we thought that's probably something that would be important to Washburn residents.
Well, that's the first thing they're gonna ask you,
Yeah.
what's the cost?
Well, if anything, I don't wanna speak for Ron, but if anything, if you're gonna hire somebody to mow it, I'm sure you could ask the residents of Washburn, and I'm sure we could all get together and go out there and make one pass down the whole ditch, you know, down all the way to the one end to the other end, you know, we get 5 or 6 mowers there and have it done in an hour.
Like I said, once you get the trees out,
Yeah.
you can get it mowed.
Exactly.
Can't leave it up to Washburn residents.
You know, as long as we get our gas paid for, that's all I
Don't
really care.
mind. Everybody on Pine Street mows it.
Okay, I understand that.
So you can leave it up to the people if they live on the property.
But you're willing to do it, but I can't imagine that some guy down there on Maple, or on the end of Maple, on the end of First, I can't imagine that guy, every time he mows his lawn, is gonna take his time to mow that ditch, he figures it's not affecting him.
Right, but I think once you get the trees and everything out, I think they'll be more apt to mow it because you can't mow it now.
But if you just look at it where it's mowed as where it's not mowed, it increases your property value on top of it, it just looks nicer.
Well, a lot of good discussion, but I think maybe it's on us to kind of come up with some more discussion among us and how we go about this. We can certainly reach out to any or all of you for input as well too, but to see what we want to do and how we want to go about it and propose that, I guess come back to you, Washburn, for the most part, or say what the county wishes to do or how we'd like to go about it, working with Kathy also, and I'm not sure who else, if there are others, but to find out what those costs would be, as well as just cleaning out ditches and removing trees and that type of thing, what that is, and seeing what steps we want to take, because I said, I know, Rich, it's a valid point to talk about what that is, but maybe there is a lot to be gained by just addressing the ditches and cleaning the ditches and getting everybody, they'll have to be assessed, but to doing that and knowing that there's a potential for further assessment, because maybe that doesn't work. Maybe if there's something wrong or something that need to be improved with that too, so would that be acceptable, I guess, to all of you, that we kind of accept that next step for where we go with this? And, you know, we know that the funds have been depleted and we're at like less than $2,000, so it was like, okay, to find that solution. If there's one, we just have it considered. Thank you. Thank you for your comments, and I was gonna say, I know Rory had something on here for nuisance properties, I'm not sure. It's on. We're fine, I'm not trying to rush you, but I knew you were gonna talk about nuisance.
Just wanted to touch a little on our county ordinance. I'm assuming most everybody is familiar or knows how to get to those ordinances, but if you don't, it is on our website, Blackhawk County Ordinance. We, as a county, we contract with the city of Waterloo to enforce complaints that come to our office. Now, when you look at that county ordinance, it almost seems like, you know, you have to go through the health department. It's not super clear. And since I've been here with the county, we have been really trying to stress to call our office, the facilities department, because we're the go-to between the county enforcement officer, who is a City of Waterloo employee. We keep track of those complaints that come into our office. We have a form that we fill out when a complaint comes in, and we send that over to the enforcement office. Over the years, Washburn, you know, we've got about 3 or 4 properties that I would probably classify as habitual with regards to nuisance, trash, litter, abandoned properties, what have you. Just recently, one thing that as a county we're looking at is, and we have a small group there that's looking into this, but there is a Iowa code called 657A, I believe, and cities use it, municipalities use it. As far as I'm aware, as a county, we have not used it, and so we're getting familiar with this process. But what it does, if a property owner does not address an issue that we feel is a health nuisance, we can actually go in and potentially assume this property. That's the part that we're currently working on right now, is what that process looks like, what that timeline looks like. Over the years, I've been in pretty constant communication. Mark, I know you and I text all the time about one particular property. That's the property that we're actually looking at right now with this 657A. We got pretty excited a couple years ago. We were able to track down the owner, and obviously the baseline wasn't too good, but the owner went over and mowed the property, and we got pretty excited about that, but did not do anything with the house. And the house just continues to get worse and worse. So again, that's where we're working as a group to educate ourselves a little more with this 657A, and hopefully that will be successful to address some of these habitual offenders. So again, I guess what I really want to stress is contact our office, let our office get a hold of enforcement, let us track that process. There is a process as far as issuing a notice, issuing a citation. If it doesn't get corrected, that citation amount goes up. So that allows us to kind of keep track of that process as we go through. So, any questions on
Roy, could you give your office number so people who are watching this video?
Yeah, our office number is 319, area code 833-3087. Yep.
How long do you think we're out before we make a decision on 657?
We're gonna try a one scenario with the property owner in an attempt to I guess throw another shot across the bow, because again, within the last 2 years, we were able to track that property owner down. He has been responsive as far as mowing, but again, with the house, there hasn't been anything. So we kind of want to, as maybe one team's working on the process of the 657A, I'm going to work on the process of trying to coax this property owner into demolition.
Let me try and clarify this a little bit, and Rich, please feel free to correct me if you think I'm getting some of this wrong.
Okay.
We are going to make clear to this property, the property's owned by trust. We are gonna make clear to this contact that we have for the trust that we are going to move forward with a 657A action to take title to this property and demolish the structure unless they agree to and then follow through within a specified amount of time. And I don't know if we discussed the specific amount of time, but I'm thinking they gotta have this down within 60 or 90 days.
Let's
And
make
get
it 30.
Well, 30 is, it depends whether you get the contractor at the time, that's what it really boils down to, so that's why I'm trying to allow a little more. You could say 30 days, and then if he's showing that he's making all attempts at it, we go beyond it. The bottom line is they gotta agree to do this themselves, or we're gonna take title to it through court action.
So what are our steps as a board
I was gonna
to
say,
get to that? Because that sounds a lot like
So right now.
communication coming out that we probably need to take an action.
There will be a point where this will come before the board. Right now, we're in the communication phase, to communicate that to them. On my end, what I'm gonna be doing is obtaining a title report. The cost for that is small enough that I don't believe I think it's.
Are we sure that part of it doesn't need board action?
Yeah, I'm a little uncomfortable with a communication going out to a property owner saying that we might move forward with 657A without the board saying we're anticipating, or, you know.
Well, then let's
I believe
get that
we
on the
have,
agenda.
yeah, we have discussion.
I think we
It's
got a
coming to the board
consensus,
here
but I
soon.
think we just need to take.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
And that's a good point, that's a good point.
It's
So,
the
yeah,
communication and the whole thing needs
Yeah.
to start with the board.
you bet, we can start that next week.
That's great, but I
because-
just meant we need to not get ahead of the thing and then find out we didn't approve it.
Yeah, I'd rather get our stuff checked off so that
Yep.
as you all work through the process, you don't have to then wait on us to make a decision. I think we're probably all at the point where we're ready to cut bait.
But the idea with this shot across the bow that Rory's talking about is that there's gonna be teeth in it this time, and there's gonna be follow-up. Because sometimes, quite candidly, what happens, and this is in very good faith, we try to work with people. And so you talk to a guy, say, hey, we got these problems. The guy's gonna respond, hey, I'll go out and take care of it, we don't, there's other siblings involved and whatnot. And so he goes out and mows the lawn or something like that time. But then there's other issues. We've got a house that's falling apart, it's wide open. I just today, during this meeting, I've read several accounts from neighbors of this property, including from at least two of these people right here. And there have been large vermin in there. There have been kids accessing the property. We don't really know what's down there. There was a time period where it was deep in water in the basement. Heck, after the rains we got, it probably is now. And so there's, what happens is I think it's an out of sight, out of mind thing to some extent for these owners. And they just maybe don't want to deal with it in a real and impactful way. So yeah, that's what we gotta bring before the board, and we'll move on that next week.
Because it seems to me, it sounds like you're trying to do like almost like a cure letter first, and it's kind of like, here's your last chance, like you said, you take care of it or we step in. So.
And we discussed that, there definitely would be a letter that would go out at that point. But the idea was also say, hey, look, we've talked to you in the past, are you willing to do it? If they come through and do it, that's the best of all worlds, but the problem is, I fear there's gonna be some sticker shock here when they see what's gotta be done. These kind of demolitions, it's not a big demolition, but I'm not an expert in that, and I don't know all of what's involved. I do know that, and I wanna be careful so I don't sound like I'm committing anybody. I know there are interested neighbors who are in the construction business who may be willing to help to make this happen to some extent. And I don't know what that means, whether that means just they're able to do the services for the going rate, or they're willing to, they're willing to work with us in some other way, but I'm aware of that fact.
Are we required under state law to offer this letter ahead of a 657A? Okay.
So far as I can tell, we're not required to give a letter, but I think the letter's a good idea because it will help show the court, against, defenses sometimes come up after a court action's filed. And those defenses can be delegitimized when we show that they aren't true. For example, they say, hey, we didn't know you were gonna do this. We didn't know that there was this law that could affect us. We didn't know that we had to remove, demolish the property or, completely rectify the nuisance out there. We thought all we had to do was mow. Well, we need to make things clear, and the conversation is great because that's an interaction, it seems reasonable. But the letter provides documentation of it to say, hey, look, we not only talked to them about it, but we informed them in writing following that conversation of the time period they had to do this when we would be filing this action.
Because getting them to comply, that's one thing, to give them a little time for that, but getting them to respond back, that they need to say this, what they're addressing and how long they respond. That's something we can, to me, put in place fairly quickly, because you need a response on what you're gonna do.
Exactly, and I suspect, and I'm not trying to assign any bad faith to this owner, but this house is abandoned. And it's, I suspect they just respectfully don't want to deal with it. It's one of those things where it's like, put it back in the drawer and hope nobody opens it kind of situation. Yes, sir.
If I could just add to it shortly, that house, I used to go to school with the girl that lived there, but that house has not been maintained, nothing's been done to it for over 50 years. You know what I mean? And it's literally just sitting there rotting away. Like he said, there's critters in there now. They're getting onto the neighbor's property. And that's, I just wanted to add that.
It was rotting away for decades before it was abandoned, but it's been abandoned.
Yeah,
I read somewhere it was 20 years this August.
Right.
I think it's worth noting too that the health department has done a thorough investigation of this property as well, and they have documented the vermin and the condition, interior condition with photos.
Yeah, those
So yes, they have that as well.
I'm sorry, but plus another thing is it's unsafe if any of the neighborhood kids, because you can get access, you can go into the house, it's not
No, we
boarded
saw
up or
that
anything.
there
And if any of
was
the neighborhood
things
kids
wrong. Yeah.
go in there to play or something, fall down, because there's holes in the floor.
And that's part of the process, is we started with, the garage door was half
Yeah.
open, so we got them to correct that. Then we got them to mow, now the back door is open, it's just, it progressively gets worse, and so I think we're going
Like
down
I
the
said,
right.
they haven't done no maintenance on it in 50 years, because I grew up on Washburn, and I know a lot of other people have too, but yeah.
Thank you.
The house next door used to be that way too, but somebody bought it and redid it all, so.
Thank you.
This is Chris, one more comment, and I appreciate feedback maybe from some of the Washburn residents. Over the years, we've been approached a couple times about the desire for a playground in Washburn. And, you know, we had concerns on our end partnering with the proposed site at the school was, you know, most people would be having to cross a busy highway and it was kind of a danger. Does anybody have any thoughts on maybe this potential area that we would have to take over the deed of being a more suitable location?
Chris, it'd be kind of difficult because it's right between homes already. If it was a corner lot, it might be a different thing.
Okay.
So I don't know if it'd be up to the citizens or, but I don't think you'd get a lot of support trying to put a playground in that spot.
We had a playground and a baseball field and all that at one time out there, and they got rid of all
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Well, you can be done with this topic. As I say, the Washburn Sanitary Sewer Board discussion really wasn't gonna be much of a discussion. Oh,
I just had one quick thing, because the question came up.
okay.
The drainage ditch is a permanent easement in Blackhawk County's name. It was acquired through voluntary acquisition and some condemnation proceedings, but it's a permanent easement. Don't really necessarily think that ownership matters in terms of the cost of maintenance, because the drainage law specifically says that drainage improvements are maintained at the cost of the drainage district. So title technically in the landowners from whom you purchased it, but it's a permanent easement.
Everybody gets charged. Thanks. The only comment that, again, on the Washburn Sanitary Sewer Board was that there isn't one in place now because I think two people had there were three individuals at one point in time. There was only one remaining, I think. And at that time, he wasn't interested in continuing, so there has been no one on that. So at some point, we'd need to replace those individuals and we'd be looking for volunteers to be serving on that. So I know I reached out even to Ben and said, like, if you know of anybody, and he said he hadn't really worked in that area and stuff, but it was just like to get the word out that you want people representing Washington. So, and I won't even ask the other because we're probably pushing right up against time.
And that was 3 people on that?
There were 3, yeah. So, super. So thank you very much, all of you, for coming and your comments, and see if we can make some progress here. And if you question or anything comes up to mind, too, please call us back, or something that you'd like to share later with Kathy or whoever, or Tim, anybody. But thank you very much for your time as well.
Take a 5-minute break before we get into the next one.
Go right ahead. Probably won't be a long
What, you think
session.
3 hours is
Thank you. Thank
Have a
you.
good day.
Yep, you too. All right, we'll move on to work session number 2. Discussion and possible board action, considerations of all aspects of the 27 Blackhawk County budget. Michelle has some things to review. Right? They're gonna trade them up. Anybody opposed that? So we can jump back to 13.
Alright, hopefully this will be short, but I don't know, that's up to you.
Yeah.
I thought we would just review a little bit what's gonna be in the paper. Probably haven't always done this with you, but Today, this should appear in the Waterloo Courier. It's a pretty large statement. It'll be in pretty small print in there. But this lays out all the things we're required to follow over the next year. It has total expenses by program. That total is on row 28. You should all have that. That should be the first page in your packet, I think. It goes down to fund balance, but you have to recall that this is all funds combined on this page. So it's all the funds that we're required to report. Oddly, we aren't required to report all of them. It also has the published tax levies, both the amounts and the actual levy rates. So it shows that we published at $5.58.58205 for the urban levy and the rural levy at $9.30403. That's really all I wanted to say about that. I also emailed you the entire budget document that we file with the state. That's about 15 pages. But there's just one page I want to call your attention to. It's page 13, and that should be the second page in your packet. This is the only one I printed for you. And I probably have never talked to you about this before, and I'm going to assume no one before me has either. It's just getting a lot of attention these days. So the general fund is the first column on here to the left. I can't get it all on the screen at once, so you just can see it at the top there, general basic. And what the budget that has been published shows that our unassigned fund balance is $15,131,264. That's less than what we've talked about, like with the June of 25 audit results, and I'm going to explain more about that later. I just wanted you to be able to see what was filed with the state. So the percentage that I understand is being talked about in the property tax legislation, you take that fund balance, the unassigned fund balance, that $15,131,264, and you divide that by the expenses, which is the amount on row 23, or $47,078,908, and that percentage for us comes to 32.14%. So, yes. And that's really all I'm gonna say about that.
Okay, are you ready for questions on that?
No, I
Okay.
think we'll, hopefully I'm gonna answer some of your questions,
Okay.
and if not.
She's showing you where the number came from.
I am, I'm starting out, yes.
Yeah, but that's where.
Yes, so, next in your packet is the traditional printout you've looked at about the tax askings. I'm actually not gonna talk about that, I just want you to know you have it, unless you have questions. Then we go to the hypothetical county taxes. I am gonna talk about that just briefly, because this has changed. Based on the choices you made March 31st, it has changed our tax rates, and so our amount of change for the various property types. So what we published shows residential urban at a 3.41% increase, residential rural 3.86% increase, ag at 2.04, commercial at 1.49, industrial potentially at 10.56%. And that's really all I was going to say on that page. So
That's our last.
now I'm going to switch to PowerPoint here. And on the first page, I'm going to review some of the things from basically the latest 3 versions of the budget. So when we published the proposed property tax levy, that was the document we used for the hearing on March 24th. The countywide or urban levy was $5.63.742. And that would result in taxes of $35,596,880,000. The total rural levy that we published for that proposed hearing was $9 $0.618, I should say, for total collections of $39,538,883. That was a tax asking increase of about 1.2 million. We made a number of adjustments that you agreed with on March 17th that brought that urban levy rate down to $5.06, just over 61 cents, and the total rural levy at $9.44. Brought the total tax assessing increase down to 1.1 million. Then, for what we just published, that'll be in the paper today, we published it for our adoption hearing. This is the same rates we just talked about. The urban levy rate is now at $5.58.205. The total for rural is $9.30.403. And we've brought the tax asking increase now down to $18,107. So I just wanted to share what you've worked through.
So, yes.
Yes.
The different changes.
Yep. And there are more slides in here, again, that I'm not gonna talk about unless you have questions, because we reviewed these already. Some of these talk about the history of the general fund and the types of fund balance that we have. But I wanna talk about slide number 8, which is projected for the future. And again, the reason that this is important this year is primarily because of potential legislation at the state level. There are still 3, at least, competing bills out there. We don't have any idea which one they'll choose or if they'll pick another option, because that happens late in the session. But I've tried to do the best I can today with the information that's out to figure out how to work within the boundaries that they establish. So at June of 2025, our general fund unassigned balance was basically $27,461,100. Our expenses, this is general fund expense only, was $49,226,534. And that expense includes expenses of ARPA revenue replacement dollars. So construction projects that's kind of one time is included in that, because that might address a question about why you're seeing lower expenses the next year. So, and that was 56%, that was our percentage when the audit was done. So the estimated unassigned balance at June of 26, I've created more assigned categories that would bring our unassigned down to approximately 15 million today. And if our expenses are the budgeted expenses of 46,365,035, that'll bring our unassigned fund balance to 32.3% as of June of 2026, the year we're completing now. Then the budget that we're working on for fiscal 27, as I kind of just flowed the projects through, that estimated unassigned fund balance at 27 made it $15,131,264. The expenses that we looked at on that page 1 of the budget of $47,078,908 brings that unassigned category to 32.1%. And that's probably the only thing you want to remember off that page, but I'm showing you a little bit. Normally, those are things that the finance directors typically just do. We don't necessarily talk about making all that sausage, but I think this year it's probably more important for everyone to understand how that's working.
I did have a question though. I mean, you talked about, because you mentioned it last week about assigning, putting some things in assignment.
Yes.
Should that, not that it needs to be, or maybe that's my question, does it need to be, is that something like the board should approve what those categories are that we put into assigned, just to give you?
Currently, according to the GASB, management can make assignments. Those are, I don't know if legal is the right word, but they are definitions prescribed in the government accounting standards about what has to be done. So you will see some things when we look at that, if I go back and we look at that general fund balance description, some is restricted. That means if it's got the label restricted, that means if some external thing has specified what it can be spent for. So none of us can change that, right?
Right.
Then there's another category for committed, and that is supposed to be the board's determination that you've decided to spend money in a certain way. So I have been using that, for example, when you elected to make funding to UNI. Before we were paid it, I have moved it to a committed level because you all voted to do that. And then when it's spent, two things happen. That year it's expensed because you spent it, and it reduces that committed at that time. So those are the ones that typically you would take votes on. Then we get, and there's a couple other little categories in there, but then we get to the assigned category, which typically your staff does, but it's based on, I mean, it's logical, it's based on things you've talked about or departments have presented, things like that.
And ours typically has got like in the 5-year plan, just those kinds of things typically? Or
It could, it does now, I think we'll walk through that
oh, you're gonna,
slide
oh,
now.
okay, I didn't
Yep.
mean to get ahead of you, I
Yeah,
just was
that's
kinda
okay.
in my head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had been only assigning the fund balance for the equipment, for example, that we were gonna purchase in the immediately following year. I've been assigning that. But I had stopped at that 1 year to give us kind of flexibility to choose what we wanted to do in the future. Because of what's happening, I have now reserved everything that's in that 5-year plan for equipment, so that, I've got basically 3.9 million for that. I have left the evidence intake facility in here at 750,000. I have not made that committed only because we don't really have documents knowing yet what the real cost is. So I have included that 750 and assigned until we have other information. The turnover pool I have in here at $1 million, just basically now we're formally taking some fund balance, putting it over here in case we need it if we have full employment, which would be a lot of department heads' dream, you know? Then we have already committed, I'm making some assumptions based on discussions with your staff for the ARPA revenue replacement projects that are left. We believe those will all be completed before June of 2027. So this is kind of, I don't know, I maybe could put a little more in there in June of 26 actually, but I haven't yet. But I did know the replacement revenue that we're using to pay for the Axon equipment, that's a 10-year agreement. So I put the last 2 years of the first 5, if that makes sense, in here as assigned because we've already made a choice to pay that. I went ahead and put in the projects that are eligible for bond funding, except for the voting equipment. I have now included that as assigned to give ourselves the flexibility to either use bonding or not. That's what that 2.9 is. Then we have other projects that the board have agreements from prior years that allow certain types of funds collected in the sheriff's office and the attorneys and the health department. While they're not guided by external laws or restrictions, they are kind of internal things that prior boards have agreed to. So we have assigned fund balance for those. They're in here now at the same balance they were at June of 25, just because I don't necessarily have better information today. I then added $1 million for attorney's office renovations. And I'm happy to change that if someone has a better number, that's just what I took. I also put in the remaining 5 years of the Axon equipment lease. That was an idea Supervisor Brandt brought up, and it was a good one, so that's in here. And if I have no typos in here, that should add up to a assigned fund balance of $12,143,247. I had not been reporting all these as assigned, but we know those are projects, we know those are things we want to do, so I think it's entirely allowable and appropriate to do that. And when I do that, it brings us down to having unassigned of 15 million, and we'll comply, hopefully, with the law. Because hopefully they don't pass the governor's version at 10%, but those are things I don't know, I can't control today, but.
Well, you said GASB doesn't require us to take action on it, it allows you as management to take and do that, so then I would assume.
But you could if you wanted.
Oh, I know, but I just mean, but I would assume then that the same, that if we decided to change any of these, that we would just be a discussion and we could change them as well.
These aren't restricted just to those purposes, for instance.
No,
the-
we can change it tomorrow.
Yeah,
That's what's clear.
So, yeah, that's what's nice about the assigned.
They're only assigned.
Increase it, decrease it, remove it, anytime.
But it still takes us to that comfort level that we see the states are on our own, which we all talked about that.
That is the hope.
Yes,
So-
that's what we're
Michelle, how about the dollars for the IT move, office renovation, or board office renovation? Is that,
So that's bond money that was already sold, so it is in
It's already
another
set.
fund, it's in its bond fund, it's not part of the general fund. So that's why you don't, it's a good question, that's why you don't see it on here.
yeah, that's what
Is
it's,
because it's in another place, because bond money, the whole thing is restricted.
okay.
So it's in its own fund to be used for those purposes.
And this is how you came up with that 15.131?
Yep.
Okay.
It is. Then, because we've kind of been talking about possibly using some funding to reduce the levy rate, I included, you've seen this slide before too. It's a confusing one, I know. But it's trying to show you how much the different types of fund balances have changed. It only goes through 2025. I didn't try to incorporate the estimates for 26 and 27 on here, but you can see what happens. And the largest drop it's because of using the ARPA revenue replacement dollars. ARPA made all this a lot more complicated to follow what's going
A
on.
lot of benefit and a lot of pain.
That's right, but well worth it in the end for us, I think. So then I wanted to move on and talk about general supplemental and rural. Again, you've seen a version of this slide previously, I've updated it a little bit. So, because I had questions last week about what the fund balance was. General supplemental, that fund balance was 6.7 million at June of 2025. And I will tell you, this entire fund is restricted. So it's the highest, can't use it unless it meets the certain requirements. So that fund balance, the expense from that fund was 11.3 million, making that fund balance 59%. And I did include transfers in there because most of the expense in that fund is the transfer we make to the general fund to reimburse for employee benefits. So I did include that. We don't typically, for some reason, transfers are not included in that figure. It does not appear the legislature is going to put requirements on these fund balances at this time, and hopefully that remains. Then same thing for the rural. The fund balance at June of 25 was almost 4.5 million. Total expense for the year is 5.3, so that fund balance is very strong at 84%.
I appreciate that, that was a question I had last week.
Yep, there was a couple people that had that. So then I added another slide showing what I'm guessing, projecting is gonna happen for 26 and 27. Using the fund balance that you've kind of already voted to do. So for general supplemental, got a column on there for 26, because I always have to calculate 26, in order to get to 27. But 27, we could, it looks like maybe $6 million approximately in general supplemental, or 48%, and that's using, I do have a turnover factor in there of about 485,000, which is historically about where we've been the last few years. And then, there are activities funded directly out of there, so we've got that 200,000 that we might use out of fund balance, or we might not. It might end up being kind of a turnover factor too. So that's at the published levy level right now. Same with rural. I've included the amount that you voted to reduce that levy in here. I think it was 90,000. So you see that coming out of there. And this chart is another interesting one. This is trying to show you how much those fund balances have changed. This is not the level of the fund balance, this is how much they've changed over the last 3 years. So the lowest for the general supplemental is an increase of over 300,000. The lowest for the rural is an increase of 374. So those funds are performing better than budget every year in the last 3. That's one of the reasons I am comfortable saying we're gonna use some fund balance. If history remains a good predictor, we might not even need to. And if we do, we have plenty, so either way, the only concern there is the future 2% revenue cap, but it's hard to weigh all 3 of those against each other. So we're trying to stop growing those fund balances, honestly. I think we should try to stop. We don't need more, but it's how quickly do you do that, particularly if future revenue potential is limited. Those are the questions.
And we know kind of the positions we're in right now from a vacancy standpoint for the end of this year.
Right, we are already at $1 million in the general fund through 9 months of the year. And I don't know that I see that going down dramatically. Hopefully it will, hopefully we get some hired, but I know we're continuing to see turnover, so.
It won't go down dramatically probably, but hopefully it goes down.
Well, hopefully it won't
But
increase
hopefully it
more.
goes down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it stops it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it increases, yeah. And we do still anticipate more revenue this year as well. That's more reserves, or more to add to the reserves. And I know that's where you're looking, like I say, not being here any longer than you have, you're trying to get an idea of where those places are we can look and what you could address to not have those large additions, but I know that takes time.
That was really.
It's nice to know it's comfortable. We have used those before, I remember in other years, but I
Yes.
was gonna say it's good to see that they actually.
So that brings us to next decisions
yeah.
potentially.
Yeah.
So should be the last page in your packet, use of fund balance. It's hard not to keep working on this, so I did add another option, just to confuse the issue some more.
I'm glad you did.
One of the things I realized that I hadn't done, and I don't know why I didn't, but I hadn't brought you down to the 26 levy rates. And I think that's an interesting exercise to see, well, what would it take to keep us at the same levy rate now that we were at for 26? So option 10 on here does that, and option 6 is highlighted in yellow because that is the option you chose to publish at. So that, all the documents you've seen previously are based on using option 6. Now you have, several more you can consider if you choose to. But option 10 would bring the levy rate down to approximately what it is for 2026. That would mean saying we're gonna potentially use $261,500 of general supplemental fund balance. And that brings the urban residential increase down to 3.41%. For rural, if you take out 105,000 potential use of fund balance, that brings the rural residential increase down to 3.6%. And that would basically match your levy rates. So it really is, at this point, your comfort level of how much in options, any of them, 6 through 10, which fund balance, and not even knowing that we'd actually use it, but you could, what you would be most comfortable with choosing.
And you were comfortable with all those as far as really from 6 to 10?
I feel like
We have a
I am,
comfort level.
after seeing the vacancies, you know, they're not, I don't think we're gonna be at 100% employment by July, so I already know we're gonna have some vacancy level in there in 2027.
And for the most part, we don't seem to have any more changes we want to make to the budget. It didn't seem like, everybody was okay with what's been in up to this point. Not everybody, but at different levels, but we are okay with that. So this is the final piece. If we could decide this today, we can be done for the most part with budget. Other than, if legislation does, like I said, we know the 20th is our drop dead. If something were to happen and we could change it or felt we had to change it and it would better our positions, we have time to do that. But it would be nice to not have to just keep waiting to do this and get this all done and could do the numbers and get them corrected for the hearing on the, and the work session also for the 13th, so that we'd have different numbers if that's the case. I had a question only because maybe it was my clarity of knowing, we had all supported, all but Chris, and Chris was very clear to mention he had not supported number 9, but we had done it 9 previously. And then we went to 6 last week. I mean, when we just talked informally, we were all like to 9, and that was where we left it with Michelle with 9. Then we, last week, went to the 6. And I was trying to figure out really why that would be the better option of all of these in my own head. So I just thought if there was anyone that had reason for that, share it. Otherwise, I very much like the option, I like 9 or 10. Number one, I love the idea if we could drop taxes, or in the lower, it would be, we've said we had 4 times since 2017 we have lowered them. And because of the climate, I guess I'd say too, where everybody's very upset about the economy and taxes and being a part of it and gas and groceries and I know everything else and wanting people to make their best effort, but I know we can and have, and that doesn't mean that we couldn't leave it at that and all of them be fine, but 9 allows us to go lower it from what it was last year. 10 allows us to stay at the same, stay current and not increase at all. So we have those 2 options, which, and anything in between, because like I said, why the 390? When I asked Michelle and said, why 390 and why 261? And she said, well, you can do any option in there you'd like from 390 down to anything else in both of those columns, in the rural or general. But it was just, these were suggestions, so it was all of the above.
I think Chris made the point, it's a fair point, right, that there is a compounding nature to, if we take the, however much out of that general supplemental to offset this year, it compounds into our abilities. As long as
it makes
this structure with the that the state's imposed is here.
Yeah, well, anything has the ability to compound it that we're doing, I guess, from that standpoint too, it does. It's just, yeah. And the 2% I think was kind of looked at as like if it was gonna be a cap too, then that would be similar to what we'd be going forward on. But we don't have that cap yet. So, and 194 versus 2.14 and the differences. It's just that the differences that it makes are not that extreme, whether we say we stick with a 2.14 or 207 or 194, any of those.
Well, that's the question I have, and Michelle, you give a quick, when I'm looking between item 6 that we've already chosen and item 10, when we look at the urban residential property, that stays the same, even though we're putting another 61,000 in there.
Right. It's because it's such a small slice of the pie.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's 100,000 assessed value out of I think 12 billion, you know? And, or it's 44,000 out of 6.6 billion. It just, the math, you'd have to go out a lot of decimals to see a difference, but that's why it looks the same.
If we were to make a change in this, yeah, what would be the little drop dead date to make that last change?
We're trying to make it today, so we have it done. So yeah, what were you, is there something you're waiting on?
Legally, we have to certify the budget to the state by April 30th, so whatever, I mean, if you really needed to wait,
Well, it doesn't change as much though, you're not showing significant change in any of this.
No,
correct?
really
So
it
that's kind of
doesn't,
the-
you know.
You could wait till the drop dead date and still, when you see the rates, it's
Yeah.
the same.
And the concern's been, what's gonna happen in Des Moines. Just wonder if, wait and see if something happens this week yet, so we have a little more clarity.
Well, I believe we have the option, and Michelle, correct me, but since we've published at option 6 already, we could choose a different option today, but then we get new information from the state. We could still go back to option 6 because we're not going above what's been published.
That's absolutely
Yeah.
correct, yep.
Yeah.
You can change it, every week now till you adopt.
Yeah, and the legislature, we may or may not know, we may know I doubt we'll know at the end of this week. If we know at the 1st of May, we're out of luck anyway.
Right.
So we deal with what we have, but it's just like, if we can make a good faith effort of us to drop it or keep it the same, I guess, or lower it.
It doesn't seem likely that the cap will go lower than
Than
2%, but anything, I hate to say that because when I wake up one day and they say they adjourned in the middle of the night, you just never know what they're gonna do.
No, and that's why
Really don't.
Chris's point though, we can
We
go
can
for
change.
10 and
Yes,
make it as
we
low
can.
as we can, and if the legislature forces us to do something different, then we can change it.
And I can hold off, you have the meeting on the 28th, that
We're trying to not, but
I
yes.
know, but you could, if something changed and you felt it was important, you could come back then. I would not wanna be having special meetings after that date, however, you need a little time to get things in there and uploaded.
Well, yeah, I know it doesn't adjust, like you say, the rates are just minimal.
Yeah, it
It's
really is minimal.
for impact of somebody reducing their taxes $2 more, additional dollars versus, because the urban's typically the rate we look at for
most
rule of thumb than all the others, but.
It just seems like a hell of an expense for future boards for $3 a year.
Well, for this same turn, it would be like, why not do it? Then for $3 a year, you're saying?
I'm saying for future boards, I understand that we're all up.
Yeah.
Right, let's be super transparent here. We're all up for reelection, we're thinking about it, and I get it.
No, that's
But-
not why I'm thinking of this at all. It's not like, let's try to do that. It's just like, if we can do it, why wouldn't we do it?
And I'm saying for the compounding nature of, if we do have a cap of 2, or if it's even the current cap of, 3, the floating cap of 3 and change, right? Sort of artificially lowering, it's not saying it's artificially lowering, but what people are gonna, the difference of what people will pay, because there are so many parcels paying it, right? Like, there's so much value that if we then, it doesn't make a measurable.
Yeah, it doesn't have.
Make a measurable move. However, next year, the following year, we've got to do more and more cuts because we took the quick ease, quote unquote, of, I'm not done. We've to me, I'm a no on the 390. I think it's just.
Well, that's what I meant, 390 might be too high.
Yeah.
That's what I said to her, that's a large number. That might be the reason to not go 390.
Yeah.
And if you remember,
There's
the
others in
reason
between.
that
Yes.
there was a reason I got to that number, and it was because I was trying to get you down to a 3% increase. So that option 9A brings just 9 now, urban residential to a 3.03% increase and rural to a 3.18% increase. So that was the reason I showed you that option, is just if you were interested in that. But they're all very, it's interesting how the percentages change just for a few dollars, but yeah.
Well, you could still, there's anywhere in between 9 and 10, you could still lower
Yes.
taxes a penny, that's what we're doing. Or if you wanted a different, like,
You know,
yeah,
you could do the
scenario.
general fund at 290.
Scenario, or-
whatever.
yeah. And I would like to see us less than 4. I mean, we did a lot, we did salaries and things like that, and large numbers of salaries, whether it's bargaining or whatever, at 3%. So 417 to me seems higher than what we maybe do overall. So the 3, under 4 sounded to me better weeks ago. And it's an opportunity to do that. And be under the 4, but it can be any version of that if you don't like any of those. Like the 390 I thought was a large, so we can do that. But we could still do something, Michelle could do, and maybe there's no appetite for it. So if there isn't, we don't need to do it. But I was just gonna say, if we could drop below the 390 and certainly see what it is to be at 556 versus 557 or 555. That's where you're looking here. If the rate changes, 559, 58, 56, 55, 57, it's, all sounds like it's relatively easy. But
I still
makes
just
a
don't,
difference.
I don't get that, how the difference between the urban residential and the residential.
The differential?
Yeah, you're throwing these different numbers in there, but the numbers don't reflect evenly when they drop.
Yeah.
Well, because the rural, they pay 100% of the rural levy, and then they also pay their share of that total levy.
total
So
levy.
it's all about the ratios.
That's why they're always like this, right?
There's only 96, I think it's
They're always-
96 million. We don't have, rural valuation is so much smaller than the urban, that it doesn't take as many dollars to impact the rural. It also, what's in that separate rural levy, there isn't a lot in there. There's, sheriff, half of it's to roads, a little bit for library, a few other things.
I'm fearful, like Dave was talking about, the continuing liability for years to come pending what happens to legislation. But also.
You can't do really pending legislation because it's totally unknown. And
It's
every year
unknown,
it's like
yeah.
that to us. It's sad.
But I guess what I'm thought is knowing where we're at now, even with fund balance from this fiscal year, I don't believe it's right to be taxing people for monies we're not actually getting to use. So I guess I'm kind of looking at item 7 or line 7 as an option. I think that does the most impact in taking the dollars that we're not using this year and applying it for 27. I mean, that's just a thought, just thinking out loud and the concern in this. Number 9 is pretty steep. I know we can try and buy it down, but I don't know the what if.
Well, 390 seems high to me too, but that's just me. Yeah. No.
I guess what I'm trying to say is I could see us moving the items, line 7 from line 6.
You could also, on row 7, that's got the general fund at 300, we could leave that. We could, maybe if you don't wanna take 115 off rural, we could do a smaller amount there. It's just, the options were infinite, so until I have some
Yeah.
idea where you wanna go with one, it was hard to.
And I thought the rural was probably more healthier than the general, so that's why I don't have a problem with 150 on the rural.
That's fine. Well, so you're okay with leaving that at the 115, in other words? Yeah, okay, that's fine.
It was just any of those that were options. It was like between 6 and 10, they were options to.
Yep. And 7 would lower both your levy rates for '27.
What are your thoughts, Chris, on that? Like if we were to go to 7 and still keep 6 as our backup?
Yeah, I mean, what's like the true willingness of the board that if we get different information from the state that really kind of gives us a clearer picture of what we're dealing with next year to actually take action to go back to 6 though. Like if we're
Yeah, and 6 may not even be good enough if they take action. We don't know what that'll be, so, yeah. But we have options. I like these that have the scenarios, because we've had to do these over the years and pick a scenario, but
It
it's
does
just like,
help see what the impacts of a decision are.
well, and that takes us to 556. It does take us lower than this year, so flat this year we're currently in, so we lower taxes a little.
6 is kind of the mid-range where we're comfortable. Just looking ahead as conservative as we can. I know, and I was supportive of going with 9 as well, just based on Michelle's comfort level. And I feel like Michelle always has that foresight looking down the road. I'm fine at 6. If I'm fine at 7. I don't want to stay here until legislation gets done.
We'll make it a decision any minute now. We can just wait and see.
I'll make the motion that we move to line 7, 300,000 from general and 115 from raw levy.
Then we can be done kind of with the budget too, and then when our meeting on next Monday, she'll have different numbers. And we'll meet that next Tuesday. If
More numbers.
Got it, if we think we want more, but okay. You want a second, or we need, do you like 7 enough to second it?
Yeah, I can second that.
All right, moved and seconded, roll call vote. Please answer your name is called.
Schwartz,
yes.
Kurtenbach,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Leyland.
Yes, sounded painful and uncomfortable. It's all right, thank you.
Thank you all.
Yes, I thought now you can get to work and get all that kind of stuff done. All right. Nothing else we need to review under budget?
I just want to make sure, since we did take this action, this will be what's presented next Monday for the work session.
So I was planning to present the information from the proposed hearing again, but then, if you remember at that hearing, I did have a slide in there that said we've already changed that, and so I would update that slide to what this shows.
Okay.
So you'll kind of see both at that hearing.
And we leave on the budget, or the agendas, the budget item, just in case we need legislative or anything else would occur that we need to change.
For the
We can still
14th.
Yeah, for the
Okay.
14th on a Tuesday. Okay. All right.
And I will not be planning to present anything on the 14th. I'm gonna try really hard not to think about any other options.
All right, any reports or information from the board?
Somebody does it.
Never say never, yeah. Anything from the board?
Stop.
Any reports or information on the board? Nothing?
I'm just gonna say again that, get that notice out to the folks in northern Blackhawk County about the public hearing on Highway 63, 50, DC 57. This went from a discussion with concerns 6 months ago to being on the radar to actually see movement now. So it's apparently got enough attention, DOT's moving it forward fairly quickly. So.
Well, they said, yeah, they were monitoring it pretty closely, so, yeah. I won't discuss anymore. Anybody else? Comment, Chris, anything? Otherwise.
Oh, I'm good.
Motion for adjournment, I can't believe everybody's not jumping.
So moved. Second. You're getting real close to that,
Oh, okay, meeting's adjourned.